I let you live. I let you live. And you wasted it.
Hello, and welcome to the last episode for possibly 2 years now of The Last of Us HBO Spoilercast, where we are discussing the final episode of Season 2 of The Last of Us, and also our takes on the season as a whole. Before we dive in, as always, massive spoiler warnings. So if you have not watched Season 2 of The Last of Us, go away and do that. Go do that now. And when you come back, it'll be safe to watch. If you've not played the game either, it'll still be safe to watch as long as you've seen the show up to whatever point we decide to start talking about the future and the game and stuff. But we will give a separate warning for that, and that will be included in the timestamps of the video. So you're fine until then, but we'll give another warning for that. But yes, I'm this week joined again by my wife Dee, who's got an interesting username today, Dina's Ponytail. You can explain that in a minute. And also by Brooke. And yeah, we've now seen all 7 episodes. So we want the way I think is probably best to do this is kind of like if we talk about episode 7 in its own right, and then kind of talk about how it all fits together as a season, because that way we can still give this episode its own time and we're not like kind of drowning it out in the wider season. So
Can we have a quick mention for Frida Kahlo, who is sitting behind me and is actually on screen today, though she seems to be having a nap.
Yeah, obviously she's decided that discussion of The Last of Us is not going to keep her awake. So, but who wants to go first, given their overall thoughts on the episode?
I miss Dina's ponytail. Like, Dina, I love her hair. And anybody who says like you can't get a haircut like that has never done a DIY wolf cut at home and has always gone to the salon for it. But Dina's hair, glorious as it was this season, I miss Dina's hair from the game. I miss the ponytail. It was sensible, meant she showed business. That being said, episode 7, whew, what a ride. What an absolute ride that was. I spent a lot of time looking in the background going, oh, 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 I know what's going on there. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it opened kind of weirdly, and I thought the Isaac stuff was kind of weird. But apart from that, yeah.
Yeah, I think personally this is probably my favorite episode of the season. Even more so than probably favorite after 2, because I do still like 2 as much as I think Abby talked too much. But yeah, like we'll get into the detail, but like the more I've been thinking about it, like it did a lot of things right. The episode 5, which seemed like about this in terms of the same amount of stuff happened in roughly the same amount of time, and yet episode 5 didn't feel like episode 5 felt more rushed because of like just like some differences in delivery, I think. But
Yeah.
I kind of talk about details that in a bit. There was a couple of things like at the start and one thing towards the end which I was like didn't think really fit. Some of the dialogue and some of the weird choices just kind of made different character choices. And then the thing, like the whole little section where Ellie like washes up on the island and nearly gets lynched, and there's like this weird like child prophet or whatever the fuck it was, like the kid, just really felt, I don't know, I was just like kind of 2 watchings of it. I'm still like, what the fuck was that there for? Why was that there? What was that about? It's just really bizarre. Like everything else was like even the stuff I don't necessarily agree with, I can kind of go, okay, I can see why they've done that, blah, blah, blah. That was just, huh?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. No, I feel kind of the same way. I've been seeing a lot of people online saying that this episode felt rushed, but I almost feel the opposite. Like
Hmm.
maybe it's just because I've played the game and it hits pretty much all the same beats that Seattle Day 3 does, with some like substitutions in there for like they take out pretty much, I mean, there's only what, 2 infected encounters on day 3, and only one of them is optional. So I think it didn't feel rushed for me. I thought it was more balanced than, I'd say, probably like episodes 4 or 5. Like you said, that felt a little bit more rushed. But yeah, other than some of the usual over explanation, too much dialogue in the episode that I thought was unnecessary, I really enjoyed this one. I feel like it was another one of those ones that I was like, I can tell that there were multiple writers on this episode. But like the ending, like the last 5-10 minutes ended so strong for me that I was like, cool, I'm gonna pretend that I like forget about everything else that I didn't like, and I can look forward to season 3, and hopefully they see all of our criticisms about things that they changed and did differently, and they'll make season 3 perfect.
Yeah.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the thing is like they hit all of, because like what's the main things they needed to deliver from Ellie Day 3 was like the conversation and journey with Jesse, which they did, and I think they did that really well. From like there's like a little bit of an arc in it, starting from them like not really talking at all and it being a bit awkward, and then there's a confrontation between them and like kind of clashing, and then obviously that peaks with the big arguments, and then they go their separate ways. Then they kind of like reach a like, okay, we're kind of cool with each other, and then obviously Jesse dies in pretty much exactly the same way as
Oh
the
my
game.
god, I saw someone like edit the 2 clips like side by side, and I was like, I knew it was coming, but I was like, I'm so anxious because I don't want to have to see this in another form of media.
I'm with you there, Brooke.
Ugh.
Absolutely with you there. I was right up to the last second. I was like, they could change it, right?
Yeah, I was like, maybe they'll just like shoot him in the leg or something.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
But yeah, because like, and because they did that as well, like I've been thinking about this in a lot of detail because I've been like trying to write down my thoughts on the season as a whole and kind of how it all fits together or doesn't fit together. And it felt like kind of this episode we had the 2 aspects of Ellie's character almost like completely separate kind of things that they were doing felt more coherent. Like so, obviously we've talked about before how they had to like delay Ellie's kind of descent because of the 3-month delay, and they needed to set up the relationship, and they couldn't set up the relationship in the middle of a big fight about the pregnancy, so that had to change and whatever else. But yeah, the more I thought about it, it felt like kind of Ellie being in this new relationship and Ellie having this obsession for vengeance were like talking over each other almost. Whereas in this episode, we see all those different bits, but they feel more coherent, and it kind of comes together and all feeds into like the same kind of path. And I think that, and also hitting all the like beats it need to, like I mentioned, like the comparison to season 5, Jesus, episode 5, and we didn't, although we got a lot of like exposition and stuff, and then went into all the action. It didn't really kind of move things forward in quite the same way that the stuff with Jesse did. Like the stuff with Jesse was really, really strong this episode. And then it took us into things which quite short and fast and intense, but they're short and fast and intense in the game as well. So it's like no, it didn't feel as much out of place. The like with the hospital, it felt like there was like the part where Ellie actually gets in and finds where Nora is. It felt like they'd cut that somewhere.
Yeah.
It's on the cutting room floor somewhere, whereas it doesn't feel like there's anything on the cutting room floor for this episode for that kind of last journey.
Mm-hmm.
The scene between Ellie and Dina when Ellie's saying, "Why, Abby?" I mean, apart from the fact that in the game she doesn't even know, and we shouldn't really have found out till halfway through next season, but the aftermath, the scene between those two there, Ellie's face, Dina's face, it was incredible. That acting was just so good. And then the moment with the friendship bracelet, it proper got to me, because what Joel did, like killing everybody who was threatening Ellie, is the same thing that drove Dina to shoot the guy who'd killed her family. So when she comes over, you can see, she doesn't even have to say it, you can see in her face that she's had a good think, and this is what she's decided, and she's still going to back Ellie. And giving her the bracelet was like, I'm still backing you, come back. That to me was so good. Oh, and can we give a little mention for the toy giraffe that was on the side, and then the open wall with all the greenery? Like, again, we got that parallel between season 1 with Joel and the giraffe, and then Ellie, where everything is dark and vengeful, with a giraffe and that same kind of building and greenery. Just I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like the set design this episode was really strong, and the visual storytelling. I loved when they were in the bookstore and Ellie picks up a book. It's a Sesame Street book, but it's something about a monster. And I watched another video, and that book is basically like, oh, don't turn the page because there's a monster on the next page. And then you turn the page and it's like, surprise, the monster is me. And I thought it was like such a great like metaphor for Ellie's descent into becoming the monster that she was setting out to destroy. I think over the day I've like softened to the conversation between Ellie and Dina, because we did have to create some sort of rift between the two of them. And I read the Dina giving Ellie the bracelet as like, I love you, but I don't like you right now. Like, I don't know how, like, I still need to process all of the stuff that you told me, but like, I'm still with you 100%. Like, I don't want anything to happen to you. I just think, because thinking about how that scene plays out in the game, the way that Ashley Johnson's performance in there was so strong. She was able to, like, you could tell without her saying anything. Because I'm not sure, like, almost all she says in that scene in the game is, I made her talk. And you can just tell how like dissociated she's become. And Dina picks up on that. And so it still the game still created that same tension without all of the dialogue. But so it kind of was a little jarring to see Ellie like actually be honest with Dina. But I did like that she was like, the way that she said, like, I'm afraid of how easy it was for me to torture Nora like that.
Yeah.
I liked that addition. So I think like it's a lot of these individual scenes that like by themselves I'm like, yes, these are great. But then I think about all of these conversations together as a whole, and I'm like, there's just so much telling and not enough showing.
Yeah.
But that like Bella and Isabella are such good actors that I also like, I didn't mind this particular like conversation as much. And I know that we had to get to the same point where there is some sort of rift beginning in their relationship, whether they see that or not.
Yeah. So my kind of take on that was, again, I'm not averse to the idea of Ellie telling Dina, because I think there's every likelihood that she will have some point. I don't know whether I'd necessarily believe that like the Ellie in the game would have told Dina while they were in Seattle, or even like, because even at the point where afterwards in the game without saying too much there, but like there's still a whole level of like repression going on and not like telling these things and not being upfront with them. That I think it was all fantastically like what was written, whether it, you know, whatever you think of it, like it was all fantastically performed, and like the emotion in the scenes was really strong. And I really like that. Like there was a bit of me that kind of immediately like dropped out of the scene as soon as she mentioned again, like, hey guys, did you know that Joel shot Abby's dad in the head?
Yeah, I
Like,
think
did you
that
know
part was
that?
just like,
Yeah.
that's like, yeah, we've heard it before. And
Yeah.
again and again and again. Yeah.
In game, Ellie doesn't even know at this point.
Yeah, well,
No,
she
I don't think she never finds
knows.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that like that's one thing. Like again, I don't know. Sometimes it feels like a nitpick. Sometimes it feels like a huge thing. But it kind of like it grates on me a bit, that whole like bit. But like I say, once things got moving and they got out and went like the rest of like the episode went so strong.
Yeah.
Delivered like so much that it kind of, as you say, like faded a bit into the back of it. And like, yeah, I feel like we ended up in the same place as you say with Ellie and Dina. It was just after that kind of felt like a bit of a bump as they were getting started with the episode, and then finally, you know, the car started properly and like we're off.
Yeah. Something else I did really like the changes they made with Jesse. I know I was seeing a lot of people were like, oh, this isn't like, they're not my Jesse. Like he would never be so angry at Ellie. But to me, like this was an easy change that they made because Jesse was like always on the tail of Ellie and Dina. It wasn't like, because like with Tommy in the game leaving first and changing that kind of leaves this like snowball effect of like the overall kind of plot. But Jesse, it doesn't really change anything about the plot. It just changed about his feelings about the other characters and what's happening. And I think the version of Jesse that they set up like was consistent throughout. I kind of like that they gave him a little more agency in this version of him. Because he was kind of just there to be like a support person and a different like NPC that you could play with in the game, and they gave him a little bit more characterization. I would have loved to have seen him like in any of their conversations, because I really love when Jesse tells Ellie in the game like, I would have come if you had asked. And I thought that might have been part of why he was so angry at Ellie, because she didn't even think to like ask him to bring, and they went a different direction because we find out that he actually voted no on the council and everything. So, but it doesn't change. Like that doesn't bother me as much. It's just not like what I predicted. But I don't know. I liked that he took more charge here, and he was still able to forgive Ellie in the end in a roundabout way. So I don't know. I just feel like it makes his death like hurt even more because he didn't want to be there, and he's only there because he cares about his community, as
and
he
he
says.
knew he was going to be a dad, and he said he can't die now because he's going to be a dad.
That is another. Oh, that's another thing that I really enjoyed that they kind of kept the same, although the way that Jesse finds out is like different.
Yeah,
because Dina's not like constant morning sickness like she is in the game. But I was nervous because I feel like these versions of the characters have been a lot more like emotionally open with each other, that Dina was going to tell him. And I didn't want that because that makes it more tragic that she never gets, like, he knows, but she never gets to tell him. I'm glad they kept that.
Yeah.
The reason that I like the fact that she's not constantly throwing up. In the game, Dina's constantly throwing up because she's only about 6-7 weeks. And at 6 weeks, the vomiting starts. And at 3 months, it generally stops. So they had her throwing up and then it stopped, which is right for the time scale of where in her pregnancy she is. I thought it was really quite cleverly done.
Yeah. I did coming back to like what you were saying about the change in Jesse's character, like I did like the fact that we found out that he voted no, and it is a big change from who Jesse is in the game. But it's again one of those ones I find myself. The more I've been thinking about it, there's like, it feels like the where they've done big kind of departures from the source material in terms of like something they've inserted something new. It's fit with the story, and it's it's ironically when they've like tried to be like loyal to the source material, they've introduced something which changes the context in a weird way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that really worked well, not only for like this quite small, tight, like neat little arc between Ellie and Jesse in that episode, which fits in with his character as a whole. Also, it's kind of too neat if the only 3 people who voted yes on the council are the 3 people that we know about, and like it's kind of like, oh yeah, well, all these like faceless strangers all voted no, and everyone, you know, the ones we know obviously voted yes. And it's kind of like, yeah, it feels more real to that, as well as feeling true to like the version of Jesse that they made, who I will say is still just as likable as game Jesse.
Yeah. I'm yeah. I didn't scream at the telly this time, like I did when he got shot on the game the first time. I literally screamed at the screen, but I was very like, oh god, they're still going to do it, aren't they? And then he runs and bang, gone. Shit.
It's just so like unceremonious. Another thing that I did like that they kind of kept in a different way. They showed it in a different way, but they kind of kept it in the same, where Jesse, I thought they were going to go more towards like a love triangle type of deal, where like Jesse is still like hopelessly in love with Dina and he's so upset at Ellie. And I'm glad they kind of squashed that. And he's like, nah, listen, like I love her, but not the way that you do. Because I honestly always felt that it was kind of weird that Jesse has like no reaction to them being together in the game. Like it's just like, all right, this is a thing now. We're cool. Like Ellie and I were bros. You can just have my ex-girl, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
so I liked that they highlighted that a little bit more than the game does.
Yeah. Although it's a lovely moment where he's like, okay, it's all good. I love her, but not in the same way.
Yeah. Because it also gives the opportunity to tell more about who he is as a person as well. Like, you know, he's had other romances. He's not just there for like his connection to Ellie. He's got his own life, even though he's still kind of tied to like this almost like a human avatar of Jackson. Like his like, you know, I was raised by the community and like to put other people before myself and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously now they've lost him, but speaking of loss, like I want to kind of go back a bit before we get to the theater and stuff, and before we get to Abby, because there's loads of stuff with Abby. But in terms of Ellie's journey, and obviously when she parts ways with Jesse, and then she goes and finds Owen and Mel. On the one hand, we didn't have what happens in the game. For those who don't know, there's a dog called Alice who attacks Ellie, and Ellie kills the dog. We didn't have that, so there was no dog death, just in the same way that Shimmer is still alive.
Shimmer lives!
Yay! And so does Benji.
As far as we know, yes.
Yeah, as far as we know. Benji's still going.
Instead, they gave us what has to be like the most traumatic possible version of Mel's death. With the fucking put the baby out of me before I die.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a bit Walking Dead, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In the prison where Carl cut the baby out of his mum.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was a brutal change. Really the only thing that I can say that I'm like kind of disappointed about that scene, well, there's 2 things. One, I love animals and I don't like seeing animals die. But I think to me it felt a lot like HBO pulling their punches by choosing not to include the animal deaths. Because if you've watched Game of Thrones, like a lot of animals die, and not always like in an accidental way. Sometimes they're killed purposely, and it just is a reflection of the
Very early on.
brutality. And
Very early
second
on.
episode of Game of Thrones,
Right?
they just snap a dog's neck because there's a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
But like, it reflects, to me, it reflects the brutality of the world that these characters live in.
Yeah.
And it's without saying too much about what is to come, like the animals are a way to show, like, humanize one side and also show the lengths at which other people have descended into something that they thought that they would never become. So like, as much as I didn't want to see it, I also think it's kind of important, and it's a little disappointing they left it out.
They had a missed opportunity there, I feel, because when they got to
Yeah.
the Owen and Mel bit, we could have had Alice run in and really Ellie barely looking and shooting the dog. The same way we had Jesse run in
Yeah.
and Abby barely looking and shooting him in the head. Would have been a really nice little thing, but we didn't.
Yeah, and the other thing is, for people who didn't play the game, in the game, it's kind of shows that Ellie kills Owen and Mel out of self-defense, because after she shoots Owen, Mel comes after her with a knife, and then you overtake her and you stab her. So the change that she was kind of like collateral damage instead was a little bit jarring for me. And I don't know how realistic it is to like shoot two people in the neck. Like they were perfectly aligned, one in front of the other, that happened. I don't know. It just felt a little weird to me. And it felt like another one of those pulling their punches. Cause like in the game, every time up until this point, we've seen Ellie kill someone other than Nora. It's been like I think back to when Ellie kills Whitney in the game, and she's like, oh, you're so stupid, like you shouldn't have done that because now I had to kill you. And it's kind of, I felt that it was kind of the same thing with Mel, how that goes in the game. And Ellie's not horrified with herself until she finds out that Mel is pregnant, and that's when she starts to like panic. So I don't know, I'm grappling with how I feel about it being an accidental death, because I think it honestly would have hurt more if Ellie had intentionally killed her, even if it was out of self-defense, and then Mel still reacted the way that she did and was like, okay, I can't change anything about you killing me, but you can save my baby, so here's what you're gonna do.
Absolutely with that. And
I did genuinely think that, like, when she shot Owen, Mel was gonna like lunge over or something, like,
yeah.
And then it was just, then they did that thing which it kind of feel like the sort of sudden, like the slow reveal of the wound and then the fall into the death is like, I don't know, it's not overdone anymore, but it seems to like harken back to a specific era of like filmmaking where there's two that like kind of spring to mind. Two films. One was the first Resident Evil film where the guy's like, the lasers go through the guy and then there's a second of delay and then all his bits fall apart. And then there's another one which the name of the film escapes me right now, but like there's a sword fight and like there's a moment where that like before the guy realizes that he's been like decapitated and then like part of his head slides off it. But it's kind of thing like it just that doesn't say anything about the scene. It just kind of oddly reminded me of those type of things.
Kind of running off a cliff, hanging there for a second, and then dropping, like in a cartoon.
Yeah, but there was a specific point in time where it seemed to happen loads in movies, and it just like felt like a weird callback to that.
And also the wound wasn't right. Right, the wound was not right. If you slice just where the skin is, you are not going to get a perfect slice to the artery. And we know it wasn't a perfect slice to the artery because that's the carotid artery and it should have been spurting. The wound was wrong. She could have survived that cut. Right. And it's like, if you're going to do the 2 through the neck thing, make sure you've got a big, like, because it would gape. If it was a gunshot, it would gape, and there was no gaping. And I know this seems a weird thing to focus on, but it completely ruined that death for me. It kind of got it back when she was like, cut my baby out and trying to tell her.
I liked the aftermath. I liked when Mel kind of was like, oh, trying to save the baby.
Yeah, I
I'm just
liked
not sure I
that,
liked
but it
how
wasn't
she died.
realistic how she was dying because she could have survived that. She's a doctor. Like, for fuck's sake, she could have
Yeah.
survived that. I did like on that though, where she attempted to do the you're going to point at this and then you're going to point at it and it better be the
Mhm.
fucking same. Like Joel, I liked that, and I liked that that was pretty much stymied halfway through. I think she put Ellie on the back foot
Mm.
before
Yeah.
the actual shot.
That's that is a moment I like to point to if people get weird about Ellie and like just complaining about how in this, especially in the show, how she's not this like killing machine. And it's
Mm,
like, well, the only reason she's a killing machine in the game is if you make her that way.
yeah.
You can tell, like at this point when she tries to do the map thing, like Joel, and utterly fails at it.
Yeah.
Like she's trying to emulate his capabilities and his violence and is failing
Yeah.
every time. And that like that moment really highlights that for me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same.
But I mean, that, like I say, the issue with how she died aside, like I say, I do think that was really powerful. Like the way they did it, like the actual kind of end, and like one of the things I really liked as well was that when confronted with that and like, you know, cut my baby out, and like she's trying to give directions, and Ellie basically doesn't know what the hell to do. She's just like, what do you mean? What does this even mean? And
Mhm.
like it goes nowhere because it's just, you know, which is how I think anyone, like, even if it wasn't like you killed them, if it was like just that situation, I think anyone would kind of be like in that, like, oh, I don't know.
I don't know. I reckon I'd be all right, but that's only because I'm a weirdo who has medicine as an autistic special interest
Mhm.
and has watched videos over and over
Okay,
again.
well,
Most,
let me rephrase.
I'm the exception that proves the rule.
I would be terrible at this. I would just be like a wreck trying to like, what you want me to do? What? I don't know.
Mhm.
Could have been worse. She could have said, "I've enjoyed every moment with
Oh,
you." For those who don't understand, I had a really bad asthma attack and was struggling to breathe. And what I meant to say as I was falling back into sort of like semi-unconsciousness because of my breathing was, "It's gonna be all right, babe. I love you." What I said was, "I've enjoyed every moment with you."
and gave me a fucking heart attack.
Oh no.
So I know Phil wouldn't be able to do an impromptu C-section.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, obviously I'm fine.
Uh,
But yeah.
but we also started to see, like, we saw it with Mel and Owen as well, but before that as well, we've finally started to see more hints of the other side of the story in this episode.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Obviously, Mel and Owen are having a conversation about where Abby is
Mhm.
and whether they should go after her and whether it's too dangerous. And
Mhm.
there's a rift between Mel and Owen because of it, which obviously ends with Mel's last words to Owen before they both die being "fuck you, Owen."
Yeah, it was.
Which
I'm
is,
saying yes because it's Abby, and she's like, "Well, I'm saying no because it's Abby."
and
Big.
then we also see the WLF gearing up. Like there's when Ellie's on her way to the aquarium, we have that scene with the boats going off and and I really like that. Like that's not something we get in the game, but
Mhm.
I really, really like that kind of just how ominous it all felt, like the gearing up and like going off to war somewhere to do some. Obviously, we don't know any details yet.
Yeah.
We're
Oh, when all the
purely from the
boats were
show.
leaving and like turning their lights off, it was so like eerie.
Yeah. And that's also proof that they can really do the like show don't tell really effectively because they have
Uh-huh.
it's almost drowned out by Dina's like cries of pain when Jesse's dealing with the crossbow bolts, but we hear them on the go and radio silent
Mhm.
over the radio, and then kind of, you know, or like there's mentioned later, orders have been relayed verbally. There's obviously this whole big operation being planned, and it's all kind of coming in training, and it's all happening in the background as well. It's like it's not the focus of attention. It just happens to be happening, but it's just like really well done the way they did that. And
yeah, I got all stimmy when I saw the big fires and explosions.
Oh my gosh, I'm not a big I wasn't a big fan of the like random attempt at lynching Ellie, but the horn, I was like, I'm triggered. It's like the Seraphite whistle and that fucking horn. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm out.
yeah. And then when Ellie's going towards the big wheel and you can see the explosions going off.
Yeah, I was like, damn. I'm glad that I will say I think the strongest thing that they did in this episode was set up season 3. So that's why I feel so positive, because there's so many things that like we'll talk about when we get to like spoilers for next season that they set up that I was like, oh, okay. I'm feeling more confident going into next time. We'll see though. But like because that is not the other than like little radio chatter, we don't see anything in the game of this invasion.
Yeah.
So I love that they included that extra scene with Isaac. I love that it seems like they're going to include more of a relationship between Isaac and Abby. That was like a big cut part of the game, from what I understand, that they just didn't have time for.
I'm not sure how I felt about the scene with Isaac. I'm really not sure how I felt about it. I know it's going to make more sense in season 3, but it does seem to be as I was telling my friend Bob, exposition of the thing, where they like, oh, I'm going to chat about this, and you go, right, okay, and rather than, but you direct dialogue, it felt clunky to me. I didn't like it. If they had Isaac saying, right, and you could see him organizing what was going on and saying, or having a go at somebody saying lights off or no radios or something, that would have been something. But the whole, as Bob told me last week, exposition stuff just feels clunky, and we know they can get it really right.
Yeah, see, what I like, obviously we got the allusion to the rest of like, Owen and Mel aren't there, Abby's gone for some reason, which again I think gives us stuff that we didn't get in the hospital.
I mean, it does
in
give
episode
us
5, which because
Abby's in the same situation as Jesse, where they're both being primed to take over.
Yeah, well, that as well. But I mean, like the initial part about like kind of, oh yeah, she's still missing since whenever, like, because that's like stuff that Ellie hears crawling through the vents in the hospital, like, before she goes into the hospital when she's like outside, and one of them saying like, yeah, she must have escaped, and like they're like, she's like, who are they talking about? And then later in the vents, so yeah, we know, what you did with Abby, and she's like, when was Abby here? Like, so. We got stuff that we got in the game. We finally got like kind of, again, those breadcrumbs of like, there's another story going on that we haven't seen that side of.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a problem with like Isaac kind of explaining his like mentoring of Abby and stuff so much, although I can see where you're coming from with that, like in the kind of the explanation. But one thing I did like, which again I feel comes back to something that we see in the game after this point, so but it meant like the way Isaac talks about the different members of like the Salt Lake crew is kind of reflected in that, like, he's we've got however many Mannies and the Owens and Mels, and there's only one Abby, and it's kind of like it sums up how they think about each of them in that way, like kind of, we've got our doctors, Owen, whatever he is, and we've got like loads of the grunts like Manny to do the dirty work effectively.
I guess our that guy that Isaac was with in the first episode that we see him is not Danny.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's okay. It was a good theory.
Some other asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine.
All right, baby. There you go.
Yeah, see, that as well, like, again, them kind of wandering into like, or the war happening around them as they're trying to do something entirely different. Like, again, it felt true to the game, and I did like the conflict between like like Ellie kind of instantly going, they're gonna hurt a kid, ready to go and do something, and Jesse being like, I'm not dying in this stupid war, you know.
Yeah.
Going, and on its own as well. But the more like, again, I keep coming back to the other kid in the Seraphites who was like the one who was like leading the lynching of Ellie.
Oh,
Like,
bro, that was wild.
Mhm.
like, especially if they did that as a like juxtaposition, say, oh look, the WLF were hitting the kid, but this other kid's evil, so maybe it's okay to hurt kids or some like weird false equivalent thing. I don't know. It
Yeah.
feels really bizarre on like so many levels. Like if it was the Wicker Man or something, like, you know, style thing about like creepy cults on an island, that might be a different matter. But because it's about like two factions at war and like, you know, supposedly equally as bad, but really we're supposed to think one's more evil than the other.
Yeah.
It just felt so out of place in so many ways. I just keep coming back to it and I just can't get over that hurdle of like, why was that there?
Yeah. It was very strange because, like, yeah, they strung her up. The horn went. There was whistles. They had to go. Okay, they're gone. Now she's still going to just go and find a boat. It just didn't do anything to serve the story.
Yeah, I think they talked about in the behind the scenes thing that like if you watch it on HBO, you get after the episode that apparently like that was a planned sequence in the game, was like this whole thing with Ellie and the Seraphites. So they were like, yeah, we thought we would have like we get another chance at including that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but it just felt weird. It felt weird because she washed up. It was like 5 seconds, and then all of a sudden her boat that she just fell off of reappeared. That was the part that kind of confused me because I'm like, there's no way that the chances are that Ellie and her boat perfectly land on that same spot from this huge ass way. I don't know. It just felt out of place, and it was like an unnecessary obstacle.
Yeah.
But if it was supposed to be in the game and wasn't, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
As far as I know, what they wanted to do in the game was like it was going to be 5 days instead of 3, and Ellie was also going to go to the Seraphite Island and have conflict there as well. And they trimmed it down, which the game's 30 hours long, so you know,
Yeah,
it makes sense. But yeah, like that tacking on that one scene, like in and of itself, it really doesn't serve anything. And like I say, the more I was thinking about it, like whether this was intentional or not, having that juxtaposition between the WLF doing something to hurt a kid and then the supposed equivalence of like the Seraphites doing something evil and it's being led by a kid, at best comes off as a really, really weird attempt at like both sidesism. Like,
Yeah.
and at worst is like almost justifying like including children in war because they're doing bad things as well. So maybe the WF has kind of a point. Like, again, I don't necessarily think that was intentional. It might have just been like really clumsy writing because they wanted to include a scene they thought was cool.
it's like Coney 2012. It's
It just
not all children turn into soldiers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
During war. It's
bizarre.
weird.
I just think it was unnecessary because both the audience and Ellie has seen the brutality of the Seraphites. Like, I didn't think we needed that. She didn't need that wake up call that, like, hey, this group sucks too. I didn't mind. Like, I actually liked that she instinctively felt like she needed to go help this kid who was being attacked. Because that feels a lot like something that Joel would do, because that's what we saw Joel do in episode 2 with Abby, is automatically like help a girl that he didn't even know, but remembered, this young girl reminds me of all of my daughters, adopted and otherwise.
All of my daughters, as if
All
there's
of-
just like a
A
pile of them
bevy of
behind.
them.
Yeah. So like I liked the parallel that Ellie is not only trying to embody like Joel in the negative ways, but also a little bit in the positive ways, that the influence that he has left on her. So yeah, I just think that the little kid doing the whole arm thing, I was like, this is crazy. But I don't know.
Yeah, that kid should absolutely be cast in like a horror movie about a cult on an island who like worship some like child prophet or something. Like that was fantastically well done, but it just made no sense to be there.
Oh, that reminds me too that this episode we saw another mural of the prophet, but it was like a different woman.
Yes.
And Ellie was like, there's more than one of them. And so I'm really intrigued how they're gonna describe this lore of the prophet next season.
That one that's gonna be interesting if they're like, because presumably that means the prophets will be further from living memory than she is in the game, and they're also like, does that mean she was part of a group, or does it just mean the people are interpreting it differently? Like the whole, like in the same way people like make Jesus white or whatever else, I think, in certain paintings. I definitely will see more about that. I'm hoping we get more time to kind of see like who she was and where she comes from.
I think that deserves like its own episode, so I really hope that we get that next season.
Yeah.
Well, Craig has stated his intent to have 4 seasons in total. So if that means 2 more seasons for this story, they've got plenty of time to like put that in. They don't have to, unless they decide it's 4 seasons, but each one's going to be like 3 episodes long or something. I don't know.
I don't know, because you've got the Abbey 3 days and back stuff that's going to go on next season. Then after that, Santa Barbara.
Before we go into that, because that's spoiler territory. Because hopefully I don't think the names spoil anything, but yeah, we should just wait before diving into that. But yeah, I think there's plenty of room to tell those stories, though. Certainly, if as long as they do enough episodes. But that kind of brings me on to like the last thing I think to talk about before we go into spoiler territory. Is kind of we've seen this episode, which now means we've seen all 7 episodes. And now you've seen all 7, what's that make you feel about the season as a whole?
I don't know, I'm going to let you lot go first, because I'm still kind of... I enjoyed watching all of it. Having said I'd let you all go first. I enjoyed watching it. I loved watching it. But to me, there's this niggling thing inside the back of my head that said it didn't live up to its potential the way season 1 did. That they made... that the writing, the direction, the story choices, Bill and Frank, all of that in season 1 was just so exquisite that every week was an hour of telly even better than the last one. And I think this one's had peaks and troughs. And that to me, even though I've enjoyed it as a whole, and there's no way I'm going to like go, oh, well, fuck it, I'm not watching the next lot. I mean, I'll be there glued at 8 o'clock in the morning. But it just feels like there was potential there, and it only really kicked into gear once Craig Mazin wasn't the only writer.
Yeah, I'm still torn. I feel like I need to like sit on it longer to like, because I feel like, and I've been like going on like Twitter and Instagram threads and like posting some of my thoughts here and there, and I'll see people respond and they'll try to like explain something to me for like why something was a certain way, and I'm just like, I just need you to like, people responding to me, I just need you to know that I think about this thing like every second of my like waking life. I understand all of the choices that they made, and I understand the reasoning that they made behind those choices, I can still choose to decide if I think it was like a stronger choice than the game or a weaker choice. And I think overall, most of the decisions hindered the story more than it helped, which was complete opposite from season 1. I think the changes only enhanced the story. So I just feel torn. Like, I'll never have the experience of watching this show without all of the knowledge of having played the game and understanding the story and playing it, so I know it on a deep level. So if there are, critics and people that are saying that this is like expert TV or like excellent TV, who am I to say they're wrong?
Yeah.
I just have my own personal experience with how the story was originally told. And I think, I don't know, just like a lot of the choices that they made didn't make sense to me to change to make it like fit TV better. It just seemed like they were choosing to change things just to change things, to like shake things up and like surprise the audience. I don't know. There's just something about it. And I don't know. I saw a post that was like, the main takeaway from season 2 that we need for season 3 is that we need to tell Craig Mazin no.
Right.
More. Because I think it does ring true, I guess, a little bit. I mean, we'll never really know like whose idea was what unless they explicitly say. But there is a jump in quality in writing from the first 5 episodes to episodes 6 and 7, which I think is kind of telling. I think it's also a little telling, at least in my personal opinion. I think the absolute best moments from the season were the things that they like pretty much kept 1-to-1 with the game. Because it's already such a strong, like everything about it is so strong. There's not a lot that I have to complain about.
Yeah.
That in the game, how it's told. So I don't know. I'm like, and I know that they said that they opened up for season 2 because like Craig apparently by himself and with Neil wrote all of season 1, but then season 2, I remember him saying at some point that they were going to have a writer's room. So I don't know if that like actually helped or hindered it, because I'm worried that like, because this is such a polarizing story with very strong themes, but everyone has like different interpretations of stuff. I feel like I can just imagine people in the writer's room like arguing back and forth about like what the most important takeaways are. And it just felt like there was not a cohesive like vision there.
I agree. Absolutely agree. I know when I mean, I did creative writing for my undergrad and my master's, and the times where we were sat in a group having to write something together was the stuff we produced from that was good, but it wasn't as strong as when it was maybe just the 2 of us or maybe one of us on our own. It was different, because when you've got that idea and that thought, you can carry that through the writing. And the idea of arguing, well, would Dina say that? Like, it's just it waters it down, I think.
Yeah. See, for me, I think like the season, barring a couple of like minor things, the season, like the first 2 episodes at least, possibly like even the whole part in Jackson, was quite a really strong start to the show and the way it was done, and it had a really strong end. In terms of like say episode 6 and episode 7 have been like really good overall. And then in between, there have been like they've had these scenes and these moments that individually have been done really well, and like the performance has been done really well. Like I can't fault like the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it's been acted. But there's a number of different things. Like, so Ellie's characterization feels off, and again, not because it's being performed bad, because I don't think it is at all. But because they spent so long, because of the time delay, going, well, we need to put this time focus on Ellie's romance so that establishes she's in a relationship with Dina and get her to this point. But we also need to show that she's become more obsessed with revenge, but there's no one for her to take revenge on in the first day. So it's that's kind of been pushed to the side. There's two things that kind of talk over each other. We're gonna have these kind of big action set piece moments, but we're not really gonna put the connective tissue between them that they might necessarily need. Like, I mean, there's an argument potentially like that they needed, whether it was longer episodes or an extra episode or something, just for like adding a few more beats, just to allow, like, I mean, I'm using this as one example, isn't it? It's not the only one, but like just to allow like Ellie and Dina to like establish themselves firmly as they are a couple now, then to have the conflict that came in the game because Ellie called Dina a bird, and like find a different way to do it maybe, but establish that, you know, she's starting to see things as either helping her go and get vengeance or an obstacle to go and get vengeance, and that's the only way she's viewing things. So there's stuff like that, and then there's things that recontextualize it, which I think if you're watching it as purely a TV viewer, if you're watching this story and taking it in as it is, these things are probably not things you'll find fault with because you've got nothing to compare it to. You probably just think, oh yeah, this was really compelling stuff. But like, from knowing what the source material is, and again, the point of an adaptation for me is make changes as is necessary to suit the medium, but you're telling the same story to people who've never heard it before. So you know, if it's whether it's a book or a video game or whatever, you've got to give them basically the same emotional experience as we had playing the game. And I think that changes, like, things that change in terms of now, like, say, the things that I suppose worry me for whether they'll land as well with the characterization and with where things are going, and like the fact that Ellie knows Abby's full motives and almost seems from episode 7 to kind of empathize with them, like certainly from that conversation with Dina and the way she delivered the Joel did what he did to save me moments. It's like, it almost feels like there's a degree of empathy there, which I don't think should be there. I don't think she should be seeing anything other than, you did wrong to me, your motives don't matter, you are in the wrong, I am in the right, you must die. That's like the way the obsession takes its toll. And yeah, again, other stuff, like, say, whether it'll come back at all, but like the fact that Ellie forgave Joel basically immediately after finding out the full truth, rather than having this rift over years. And again, it recontextualizes what she's feeling internally, why she's feeling guilty about the way she was to him beforehand, and what drives her onwards with the survivor's guilt and with you know what she's doing now. So it's lots of stuff that I can see how easy it would be to be just to experience the TV and have no knowledge of the game, and maybe be critical of some of same stuff that we're being critical of, and say, oh yeah, there's too much exposition. And I definitely think knowing Abby's motives ahead of time is unnecessary. I'll stand by that even without the game. I don't think we needed to know anything about Abby other than that she came and killed Joel until next season. I
agree. I think the people that were gonna hate Abby and not want to watch season 3 were going to feel that way regardless of if we had gotten anything about her, because that's what I'm seeing, is that people are like, what do you mean season 3 is going to be about Abby? I don't care about her. I don't even want to watch this. Like, changing it, giving us her motives did not change those people's opinions, clearly. So I wish that they would have kept it secret.
I agree completely.
So yeah, I do kind of recognize that there's a lot of stuff that I'm kind of going, I don't like that, or I don't think it lands as well, is stuff that people who've not played the game will be looking and going, what are you talking about? But I think there's also things that, whether you've played the games or not, still kind of don't fit. But again, that's kind of like coming back to, I suppose, like my overall thing is like strong start, strong end. but plenty of shaky ground in the middle and things that are really good on their own, but don't really fit together as well. They're kind of like brushing against each other like tectonic plates, causing weird rifts in the storyline, which I'm hoping that they learn from and give things more time to breathe in season 3.
Agree.
Yeah.
100%. I'm just thinking about this now with just in terms of how Abby was in this season. If I had the chance to write this and would change things, I do like the introduction scene of them in Salt Lake, like right after. If they wanted to tease, like set up this quest for revenge so that maybe audiences aren't as surprised when Abby actually does show up and kill Joel, like I don't mind that. And I would have kept her monologue short so we don't know why she's there or like why she's killing him. And then the scene where she's having a nightmare, I would have put in the finale. The last, I would have made that the scene after it cuts to black. You see Abby walking through the hospital talking to herself, and that like older Abby is like, don't go in there. Like his brain's all over the floor, which teases who Abby might be. And then she wakes up from her nightmare, and then we still get the same scene at the end. I think that would have been like such a great tease to keep people wanting to come back because they're like, oh, who is this girl?
I mean, what we're saying essentially is HBO, we're looking for jobs, give us jobs.
Yeah.
Because we got some brilliant ideas.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the, like, I liked seeing Abby. I missed her in, episodes 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, same.
I would have loved to have seen that, like, nightmare shot of her in the hospital in the finale.
Yeah.
Which is what I thought that they were going to do. I thought they were going to save the reveal for who she was until the finale.
Yeah, they could have done it like, say, the nightmare shot, or they could have even done it in the same way as the game where that wasn't the nightmare, that was the flashback, and she walks in and you see who it is, kind of, and it all kind of clicks there, and then you find more out about it next season.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I admire their committed, like that they're committed to tell the story in the same way, the same structure of the game. I think that was a bold choice. I just think that like they could have given a little like sprinkling of next season to get people who don't already love Abby to come back. I think people will come back anyway.
Yeah.
I think that they're banking on like the haters to tune in anyway, because people hate watch stuff. So I understand, but
my tattooist will be very happy with season 3 because he is staunchly Team Abby.
Nice.
He really is. And he likes to wind people up on the internet about it as well. Big shout out to Tara Whitfield, who did my tattoo, and Jade, who did my firefly. And they're both complete nerdy geeks. And I did say I'd say hello on this. But yeah, I agree. There was so many ways they could have done this, and the way they chose, to me, speaks to the fact that it may well have been a writer's room, but it also does speak to the idea that Neil and Hallie are louder voices than Craig's.
Yeah. Again, like, as you say, it's like the fact that they stuck to the way the first half of the game is structured is a really bold choice, and I think we were both in the same boat of like going, until we realized like about maybe halfway through the season, going, oh shit, they're actually going to do this. It was like, no, they're not going to do it like this because it won't work the same as in TV as it does in the game. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I feel like I twisted my brain into like 8,000 pretzels trying to figure out how they were going to structure the game so that it like gave the same message with making it more palatable for TV. And this whole time they were just like, no, let's just keep it the way it is. And I'm like mad at myself. I spent so long thinking about it.
Yeah, but that absolutely speaks to like bold choice, which again makes the kind of almost timidness of going, oh well, we have to reveal some stuff about her, and we have to like drum in like these certain things, like, you know, did you know he was shot in the head by Joel? Guys, did you know Joel shot Abby's dad in the head? By the way, Joel shot Abby's dad in the head.
Honestly,
No,
by
I heard.
the third time, I was like, yeah, and that was probably the most humane way to kill that man. Good for Joel.
Honestly, I heard
Like,
that
we
Joel
get it.
shot Abby's dad in the head. I don't know if you guys heard this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, I don't get what their intention is with that, because I don't think that drumming that one point home does anything to like make people more sympathetic to Abby. I just genuinely don't like. I mean, sure, there's a subset of people I've seen, like, I've seen so many weird discourses on social media and TikTok and YouTube and all over the place. But yeah, I think the people who think that specific act by Joel of going to save Ellie was wrong are not really kind of that big a group. Like, most people, like even people who sympathize with Abby and think that Joel shouldn't have lied to Ellie and sympathize with Ellie for why she's upset with Joel, would still in most cases say, yeah, okay, given what Joel faced in the hospital, what else was he going to do other than that? That's exactly what he had to do and should do.
Yeah.
Like say, unless you're kind of some weird cold-hearted utilitarian who's like, you know, it's fine, sacrifice the children.
It seemed like they focused. My interpretation of the conflict between Joel and Ellie has always been, it was less about the fact that to Ellie, it was not about the fact that Joel took away what could save the world. It was that he didn't allow her the choice. And this is the choice that she would have made, but she didn't get that choice. And that was always the core of the issue. And to me, it felt like the show, and just like hearing like Craig talk about it and like the press talk about it, and then Neil Druckmann coming out and being like, yeah, our intention was that there was actually going to be a cure made. I'm just like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, that it just feels like they're highlighting that people are upset because like Joel doomed humanity. And I'm like,
I hate this as a talking point. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I mean,
yeah,
I'll accept that they wrote The Last of Us Part 1 and the Fireflies were going to be able to make a vaccine, and they just shit at the science when they were writing it. I'm fine with that. In fact, I made a whole video talking about that point, which I kind of, as expected, all the discourse that I thought was tedious is now in the comments section under that video. But again, the point that I made alongside that was that, yeah, okay, they could have made a vaccine, and Joel wasn't considering whether or not the vaccine could be real. He absolutely believed that they could. He had no reason not to. He wasn't weighing up the odds in his head about the logistics of like whether they do it, like whether they'd be able to distribute it, what kind of conflict it would lead to, any of that stuff. That's interesting questions, but Joel doesn't care. Joel doesn't care about any of that. Joel is faced with this person with the gun is telling me that another child that I love is going to die. This time it's not happening. And again, and Neil Druckmann said this as well, like so many times, like people kind of assume that he's not on Joel's side because there's like weird conspiracy theories about the way Part 2 is written and stuff, but he's always said this, and he still says this. He wrote that on the basis of, not on the basis of like some trolley problem thing about like, you know, oh, do you save humanity or do you save... Again, he wrote it on how far do you go to save someone you love? What do you do to save? That's the question. It's not like, it's not the trolley problem. It's not would the vaccine work. It's not any of this stuff. It's how far do you go to save someone you love?
I would shoot everybody in the hospital to save you, just so you know. Quite happily shoot everyone in hospital for you.
Yeah, and I think again, like that's most people, and it's not like Joel would have gone like he was going, oh, the cure's not real, so I can go and save Ellie. And then if someone had come along and present them with a load of scientific like spreadsheets,
yes, I changed my mind now.
yeah,
Right.
the science is okay, I'll allow it.
Not happening.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because people are presented with scientific facts all the time, and it just automatically changes their mind. Of course.
Yeah, this is happening a lot at the moment.
Yeah. Plus, this was one of the things that I saw a TikTok where someone had said essentially that, if their child was put in place and they were going to be killed, but the end result was it'd cure cancer, he'd go and save them and do all that thing. As again, like basically presenting it in real world terms, and I think, yeah, anyone would do that still. And there were loads of people in the comments going, "No, well, you're evil then for saving your child." Just like,
Fine, I will live with my evilness.
it's just so baffling, like how insane the discourse becomes if you allow
Oh,
it.
Yeah, I just feel like the conversation circling the show, both the way that the themes are presented and just the way that I've heard Craig Mazin like talking about it, just feels like it's allowing too much of that conversation to happen, and I'm like, none of that is the point.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you guys everyone keeps focusing on it. Sure, if the other people in the Salt Lake crew are there not only because they care about Abby who lost her dad, but also because, this thing that they've all been working towards has now been taken away from them, like, and doomed humanity. Sure. But I just don't think that the way that all of that information was displayed and like the motivations of Abby's friends were like not, I don't know. There's something not done well about it.
Abby herself didn't mention it, which I'm glad of, because again, I think once it comes to it and it comes to like the challenge of next season and like kind of making it humanized and relatable, the two things there are, one, her motive for revenge isn't the loss of the cure, it's a loss of her father. And two, obviously, is that the relationship she forges and the path she goes on afterwards and everything else. But again, even from Ellie's point of view, like, yeah, she wanted to, she says, like, I should have died on the operating table. My life would have fucking mattered. She's not doing that because of like some altruistic belief in like, saving humanity. She's doing that essentially because she's a traumatized child with survivor's guilt. She feels guilty that she lived when Riley didn't, that she lived when Tess didn't, that she lived when Henry and Sam didn't.
Yeah. Yep.
And now that she lives when Joel didn't. And that's the overarching thing that kind of drives her on through part one to wanting to go to the Fireflies, what makes him mad at Joel for not letting her die. And then what drives her on now to do this journey. And I think trying to make it more kind of rational in that, oh no, well, it's because humanity is like, realistically, she doesn't really care about whether there's a cure or not. She cares about.
I think that's what bothered me so much about, if I had to be like okay with them in episode 6 combining, the reveal and the forgiveness scene in the same scene on the porch, like fine. But I think what really bothered me about it is that the dialogue where Ellie says like, my life would have mattered, or like, you took that from me, and then she says you took that from everyone. I'm like, Ellie doesn't care about everyone else. She cares about the choice that was taken away from her. And then calling Joel selfish because of it, like, it just totally recontextualizes that whole conversation. And I think that is, if I had to like pick the thing that bothered me about that the most, it's that, because it takes I was talking to my boyfriend about this week. I'm just like, it feels like the show is trying to make this like broader statement about like community and like all of these people. Like, Joel wasn't the only person that died that day. And it's like, sure, that's reality of what would happen in real life. Like, it's just one body among a bunch of others. But the thing that is so endearing about The Last of Us, it's such an intimate story between specific characters. And that's not a bad thing. It almost makes me more mad that they're trying to like take attention away from that.
I'm kind of like, I've been thinking about the "you're selfish" comment for a little while now since we talked about it, and it has crept back in my head every now and then. And I can understand it in the context of she's being a bratty teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when she says it, because of the changed porch timeline stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it was completely, I don't know, she was lashing out, I think. And I was thinking back to my own teenagehood, and trying to lash out, and my kids doing the same. And I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think because they did it on the birthdays in that kind of way, the porch scene being where it was, and the fact that we hadn't had this big gap, I think it was miswritten. I think it was possibly, even though I can understand where they're coming from, it's like you were saying earlier, I can understand all of it. I just don't think it landed as well as it could have because of that.
Yeah.
I think that had she called him selfish, had she found out right when it was the first birthday scene and then called him selfish and then gone on to say, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'd like to try, that would have made more sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, I think everything has to have like whole world stakes. It feels like it's like, you know, you can just tell of like personal stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, a cure obviously in a global apocalypse has those implications anyway, but that was the whole point of like they already subverted that in the original story, because it didn't, after like that thing of like, oh, you know, this child's got the cure, we can end the zombies, blah blah blah. Oh no, wait, it'll kill her. It's actually me, you know, Joel as a father being able to kind of right the wrongs that where he wasn't able to save his daughter. This time he can save her, and this is how far he'll go, and it tells a different story than you expect. So yeah, I think coming back to that and making it about the cure and like Joel is selfish, and that should be like background stuff. It shouldn't be like the point.
Yeah. I mean, the senseless death toll. I mean, with Sarah, it was senseless. He couldn't have done anything about it. It was literally fired. Okay, dodge. Oh shit, she's dying. She's dead. At least with Ellie, he had warning. He knew what was about to happen. And there is also that had he turned up even a minute later, it would have been too late. So there's this whole urgency, but it's still within his power to do that. And I think at that point, it stops Joel feeling quite as powerless as he did with Sarah. I think there's something to be said about Joel.
Well, that's why him saying to Ellie, like, if I had the choice, I would do it all over again. So strong.
It's Steve, and suddenly a Steve appeared.
Hello.
Hi.
We've just to catch you up. We are still in pre-spoiler territory in terms of we're not spoiling anything in the future quite yet.
No.
But we've just been talking about kind of our view of the season as a whole, which kind of went on to the debates that have been raging about Joel's motives and whether he was right to do what he did. I think we're all firmly on the side of and kind of whether or not the showrunners, or particularly Craig, have kind of misinterpreted that in terms of the motivations and the themes and characterization, and that's changed things.
Because we know, like, we talk about like Ellie not having her autonomy in that moment. How old is she at that point? 14? We make decisions for kids because they haven't got the brain width to make them for themselves at that point.
I mean, it's it's modern medical ethics. You can't make this decision. You can't let a child decide to do that. And you also can't like kill someone to make something, like even if it'll save a bunch of other people, without the consent of either the person involved or their legal guardians or whatever else.
Yeah.
Does that not all kind of go out the window, though? I mean, I'm with you guys that Joel made the right decision, like, especially for him. It was the right decision. You can't just kill a little girl, regardless of what it's for. But in the apocalypse, I think a lot of the morality and a lot of the
Hippocratic oath.
Yeah, it all just goes out the window.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the thing is, like, obviously, the Fireflies are not operating according to, like, you know, the British Medical Association's guidelines or whatever else. Well, they wouldn't be anyway, because it's whatever the American equivalent to that is. But yeah, I think just in terms of, I suppose, ethical principles, like those things are codified at the moment for a reason, because like that's kind of what we generally agree is the right way to go about things. I mean, this is kind of a tangent from talking about the porch scene and kind of how Ellie shouldn't have been going on about how Joel took this away from everyone. She should have purely been concerned about what she herself had lost in terms of a choice. But pedaling back a bit, since you've just joined us, do you want to tell us kind of your thoughts on episode 7 as a whole, like your overall verdict?
So I want to first of all caveat, I came onto this podcast on episode 5 and I said, yeah, I really liked that. And then I went away and thought about it and I realized that I didn't really like it.
Welcome to the gang, Steve.
This is a weekly occurrence, I think.
So
for everyone.
I'm going to say that first to caveat that I've just finished episode 7 and I think I really liked it. But I might be wrong. I don't know. I quite enjoyed it on a first watch. And I think that's what it is. Like, a lot of these episodes are really fun to watch for the first time, but then don't stand up so much on a rewatch and even just like a rethink. There's a lot of, I don't mind the odd, not a plot hole, but I don't mind the odd kind of slight inconsistency and stuff. But there's been a lot this season that has felt fun to watch, and then later on thinking about it, I'm like, no. Episode 7, it felt the most like The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
Than the entire season. I really enjoyed seeing Ellie with a wee bit of sass behind her. Like she was very kind of firm in her opinions, like, I am going to go after Abby, and having that kind of face off with Jesse felt true to the character that I know and recognize from the game. So yeah, and then seeing her like about to pull the gun, because I mean, we often talk. The biggest issue that I've had, and I think this is echoed by a lot of people, is that in the show, Ellie has seemed stupid. She's seemed like a liability. Like in the game, she's such she's smart, and that kind of works into the fact that you as a player have to be smart to beat the game. So like, it's our smartness that is kind of injected into the character of Ellie, just through us being the ones to solve puzzles, to work out enemy placements and stuff. So any character that you play in a game that you have to solve puzzles as that character, the character is going to feel smart because you're playing as them. And having Ellie come across as stupid just felt like such a betrayal to her obvious smarts, able to get the number of times in the game like she goes off on her own and can handle herself. And we finally saw her do that. Because I think every time so far, apart from like she went off and got Nora, but that was like a scene. She went off and got Owen and Mel, and that lasted a bit longer. You actually got to see her being angry and being in the moment. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was saying earlier that even though episode 5 and episode 7 cover about the same amount of time in terms of in story time and last about the same amount of time in terms of episode time, episodes 5 felt more rushed than episode 7, and episode 7 felt kind of more like those things fit in terms of the pace that they did them at. I don't know whether you thought the same or...
No, I definitely thought episode 5 felt rushed. Episode 5, it felt like there's a lot of different things, because in day 2 you've got the stalkers, which they adapted, and then the Seraphites, which they adapted, and then the hospital, which they kind of half adapted. And so there's lots of stuff to cover, and they did that. There's actually not that much to cover in day 3. It's pretty much go towards the aquarium, her and Jessie split, she goes. There wasn't that much in terms of main plot points to cover off. Day 2 does a lot more story than day 3 does. So although they were about the same amount of time, those moments in episode 3 just had a bit more time to breathe, a bit more time to resolve themselves. She got a good couple of chats in with Jesse. You got to kind of get a much better idea of where he is. Whereas with episode 5, it was just like, right, we've done this, the stalkers, right, onto the scars, right, we've seen them for 5 minutes, right, let's go on to the hospital. Slow the fuck down, you know. And I think that's what not just season 2, but I think what The Last of Us HBO lacks in general is the main plot points of the game are covered in cutscenes, and everything in between, while it is gameplay, it's connective tissue. There's so much that happens when you're in the gameplay. That's the connective tissue between the cutscenes, and it feels like what the whole series, season 1 and season 2, what it suffers from is covering the big plot points, but not giving us much of the connective tissue in between, not giving us the smaller moments. And that episode, I don't want to talk too much about episode 5, but it's a good comparison to episode 7. Episode 5 was just like plot point, barely fuck all in between. Whereas episode 7 had a couple of plot points, and then in between that, you had the chat with Jesse, you had the fight with Jesse. Having a moment, I feel like if it was any other episode, like she would have killed Mel and been away, but you saw her like, and Bella Ramsey played that perfectly. Like she was
Wasn't
so
it incredible?
I think I've made my point. We need connective tissue, and that's what they're not giving.
I
us
think you're
very
onto
often.
something, especially with episode 5 feeling disjointed, and I've seen people say that a little bit. They're like, how do these characters just get from like one point to another when it's like a WLF infested city? And I when I tell people who might want to play the game, well, people that I've seen a lot of people say that I really want to experience the story of the game, but I'm not a gamer. Maybe I'll watch watch it on YouTube. I always say, like, watch a full playthrough. Don't just watch like a compilation of the cutscenes, because there's so much of that connective tissue that you're missing out on, because Naughty Dog is just so good with like that storytelling through your experience playing.
Like for one example, in Downtown, in the game, Dina mentions wanting to live on a farm and raise sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like there's a whole bit of later on. Are we in the spoiler section yet?
We're gonna get there in a minute, but before we do, I have one more question about episode 7 for you, which we've already talked about, and I want your take on.
Okay.
What the fuck happened on the Seraphite Island? What was the point of any of that?
So,
what was your take on that? So I didn't mean to frame it that way. That sounds like I'm steering your view, but yeah, that was like.
So here's basically a real time me on the couch with my friends, right? I'm sitting there, it's like, wait, is she on the fucking island? Oh, okay, this isn't in the game. Let's. Fuck, this is new. This is oh, she's back on the boat. Okay.
Yeah. And how did the boat perfectly land right next to her? That's what I need to know. That was a big ass wave.
Maybe it was a
You've
different
got the
boat.
I've got Mel's wound. It grates.
Yeah.
What was the point in it?
That's what I'm like. I'm trying to even think of a narrative point for that episode, and I can't think of anything that like says, okay, we did this to do.
For it would be to show how close she is to Seraphite territory. That would be it.
And how close she was to Abby without knowing.
Yeah, I think
without spoiling anything. But like, I feel like
they could have done it another way.
Yeah. Well, I feel like they missed out on something in like an earlier episode, and they're like, shit, we got to make up for that. Let's create this whole scenario that didn't actually happen in the game to make up for it, and it just like wasn't as successful.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I also feel like
I feel like and genuinely, I think I'm ripping this from somebody on Reddit. That I caught somebody talking about this earlier without realizing what they were talking about because I hadn't seen it. But earlier in the episode, she was so up for saving this kid, and now this kid is the one dooming her, like basically showing her like these guys are not your friends. These guys are not like they may be kids, and I think it's probably set up for Lev and Yara, and like, can we trust them, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel really iffy about that if that's what they were doing though as well. Like as I was kind of saying before, is like if they were making that a deliberate or even unintentional parallel to like, oh yeah, the other kid who was like she was up for saving and like, you know, the WLF were wrong.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this kid who's like leading the lynchings and doing things, so maybe they're not that wrong. That just feel like, again, I really fucking hope it wasn't intentional, but even so, it still feels iffy, and that's like being kind to it. That just feels.
I don't think I minded its inclusion. I just was like, all right, that happened. Right, back to the story.
That little kid
such a weird
because
detour.
the other child Seraphite we saw on an earlier episode was like, "Oh, can I have a hammer?" Like, and it was like, and then we got this kid who's like, go on,
again, like, from a narrative point of view, it kind of felt weirdly pointless. From in the context of the like the real world and what kind of message that might be sending, it just was like, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
The whole scene to me felt like when you're like getting ready to go on a road trip and you're like, okay, I've got all the snacks, I've got everything planned, and then you get in the car to go to your destination that you're like really excited to go to, and then you see that like your tank is out of gas and you're like, fuck, I gotta stop, make this pointless stop. Like that's what it, and then okay, back on the road. Like that's what it felt like to me, and I'm trying to figure out what the point of it was, other than hearing that it was a planned section of the game that got cut that they wanted to include for the show. But I feel like that's a weak a weak reason to include it.
Absolutely, especially if it was cut, because it wouldn't cut for no reason, was it?
Yeah.
If it was that great, they'd have found a way to include it in the game.
Right.
So with that, anyone who has watched season 2 of Last of Us and does not want to know what will happen in season 3 or what might happen in season 3, and they have not played the game, this is your spoiler warning, because we are going to spoil the fuck out of probably everything. So if you don't want that, then this is your cue to leave.
Oh, real quick though, before, can I say something? It's not a spoiler. It happens at the end of the episode that I just thought it made me chuckle because I thought it was funny. The book that Abby is reading when she wakes up in the game, it's a real book called City of Thieves, and the author is David Benioff, who was one of the showrunners of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And one of the main characters in that book is named Lev, which is a character that we might meet later. But the book that she's reading in the show is like Thieves of the City, and then it's like Bave Denioff or something. And I'm like, Brad and I both looked at my boyfriend and I looked at that and we were like, that's so funny. They must have not like gotten the rights to have that book on screen, which is just funny because it's an HBO show and it's either like HBO making fun of David Benioff for like fucking their most popular show up or Benioff being salty about HBO for something. And I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah. Well, he didn't get to make the spin-off that they wanted to make because they rushed the ending of Game of Thrones to make that spin-off and then messed it all up. So
we don't mention season 8. We don't talk about it. We can talk about Bruno, but we're not talking about season 8 of Game of Thrones. It's like it's not happening. Yeah.
Well,
spoilers.
Speaking of Abby, and I really liked this detail because I don't think this was a detail we saw in the game at this point. But did you notice that Caitlin Dever had a rope mark around her neck?
Did she? I did not see that.
There was so much about this episode that they were setting up for next season. Did anybody else see the sky bridge in the background?
Yes, I literally pointed at it.
I shrieked. I was like, because this is like, and I think I've said it on here before. I was so nervous that they're gonna like change that storyline because it like is impractical or unrealistic because they've, I just hear on the podcast they talk about like, oh well, we didn't do this because it didn't seem like as realistic as like real life, and this is more like grounded. And I was like, oh, they're gonna cut it and they're gonna make Abby afraid of something else. And then you see it in the background, and I was just like, all right, this will hold me over for 2 more years.
Yeah.
The explosion.
Knowing that the sky bridge is coming.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Such a little thing, but
and that's there's so much that has. I'm so looking forward to season 3. I've not enjoyed season 2 a huge amount. Saying that, I mean, season 2, episode 2 is one of my favorite episodes of anything ever. But the whole package, haven't enjoyed season 2, but there's so much for season 3. Like knowing that the sky bridge is there, knowing how amazing an actress Caitlin Dever is, and like having her carry season 3.
Oh my god! The first thing I said
program with Caitlin Dever in it over the weekend. Dope sick. Watch it. It's brilliant. She's amazing.
Yeah. The first thing I said after like it cut to black, I was like, Laura Bailey came in and possessed Caitlin Dever's body when she was like, we let you live and you wasted it, because it sounded so much like the original. It was so good.
That shot of her stood there looking just mean with the gun, and it's like, step on me, mommy. So she's tiny. And I was like, she looks terrifying, and she's so tiny in stature. I was worried.
This is why
to carry off terrifying.
This is why I said from the start that I totally disagreed with Phil on she needs to be muscly. She doesn't. She doesn't. She carries it. She is that good an actress. She can play meek and vulnerable, and she can play absolutely terrifying, and she can jump between them. So
I have no doubt that she's gonna like perform this really well.
He's gonna
My
kill it.
gripe, though, and it's not even like a plot gripe at this point. I mean, there is, because obviously there's a representation issue in terms of body types, and there's also like what it says about the character, why she needed to bulk up. But leaving that aside, my main gripe now is that even though we'll get what seem like a lot of like beats from the game in season 3, we are not going to see Caitlin Deaver box stalkers. Like the thing that they did in the game where it was like you went from the stalker officers as Ellie the first time you went through, and it's a terrifying experience. You're hiding, like trying to dodge around and like trying to avoid these things. And then the second you're Abby, it's like, right, game on. I've got a hammer.
She just like
Fucking
puts her
bring
middle
it.
finger up and they fall over dead.
Yeah.
Well, Isaac did a lot of world building when it came to Abby with that scene in episode 7 where he's basically like, she was meant to be the next leader of the WLF. She is the most important, so like she's got something. I don't think she needs muscles to have.
No.
Yeah, she's gonna be like, I don't know, really capable soldier or something other.
Yeah, I mean, she shoots Jesse in the head without like even looking at him really. So I guess she's
Uh-huh.
good at some
Right.
stuff.
I was watching that whole scene when they were sitting on the stage, and I was like, "Oh, I know what's coming. You're a good man. You're a good guy." I was like,
Every time he said, "I can't die," I was like,
no.
I was like, they're really
But
driving this thing home. Like,
Yeah.
technically, he didn't die out there, like he said. He said, "I'm not dying out
He
here."
died in
Died
here.
in here. Listen, I said this last night. I was like, because I mean, Caitlin Deaver is amazing, and she was in the first 2 episodes, but like, just her like, her spirit and body, like she embodied not Ellie, Abby in this episode. That I was like, I will suspend my disbelief if Caitlin Deaver gets in the gym in between seasons 2 and 3 and comes back with like jacked arms. I don't even care that she didn't have them in this season, like, because I think I saw an
George
interview.
Lucas and just like CGI them in, or like change the scenes.
Yeah. I saw something
fine.
that was basically like she was cast and then had like 3 weeks before she was on set. So it was like a very short turnaround time, and that's also like a logistic reason why they didn't have, a muscly gal. But if they have time now.
They do. They really do. I've literally been watching her in everything she's in. I've been flicking through Netflix and Disney Plus, etc., and then going, "Oh, it's got Caitlin Deaver in. I know this is going to be good." And I hadn't really taken any notice of her before. So yeah, she's done like everything she's done. The one where she played an influencer who said she had cancer. She was brilliant. She was vulnerable yet disgusting. She has, I think, range is what they call it, isn't it? She has range.
I watched. There's a thing on Netflix on Unbelievable, I think it's called.
Yes, where she plays the girl who gets yeah. Oh.
And so for the audience who are listening, who don't know what Unbelievable is, she basically plays a girl who goes to the police after she's sexually assaulted, and the police don't believe her, and she's eventually landed with a charge for false
reporting.
False reporting, that's it. And during that whole series, she just plays like trauma broken person, and I spent a lot of it thinking like different type of trauma, obviously, but man, you're going to play Abby well. I can't wait.
Yeah.
She
plays
amazing.
an addict in Dope Sick, and even there she has this whole forward propulsion like focus, and I'm like, yeah, Abby's gonna be good.
Yeah. Coming back to what we were saying earlier, though, I really do hope that they give more time to breathe between like kind of moments in season 3 in particular, because at this point they're not just a case. It's not just a case of, okay, same 3 days we've seen, we've got to do them again from Abby's point of view, which they have, but they've also got to introduce new characters and also effectively reintroduce these characters that we've met briefly, because we don't know anything about them. We don't know that Owen and Mel are a couple. Like, we know that Mel was pregnant, but
I did see someone, I don't know if it's just because they're trying to avoid spoilers for season 3, but they interviewed the girl who plays Mel, and they asked her, like, that because it wasn't confirmed in this season that Owen is the father, and she basically was like, oh, haha, like, I'm not allowed to talk about that. Like, Craig left it ambiguous on purpose. And part of me is like, okay, that makes sense because they don't want to spoil it. But then part of me is like, what the fuck? Like, please don't change that. Like,
I mean, the dialogue and the acting between Mel and Owen in the last episode, they were bickering like an old married couple. It's kind of
it was very clear, like, the same rift, like, because Mel and Owen were together, but Mel suspected something had happened with Abby and also doesn't like Abby.
Yeah, I
Are we
think
going to
that
get
same
the boat scene?
What's that?
Yeah.
I said, are we going to get the boat scene?
Yeah, we'll get. I mean, they can't not, because
they have
like,
to. Surely,
there's a huge amount of character moments in. Like, I mean, I know everyone kind of memes on it about because of how it ends and everything, but honestly, that's like so much that even up to the point where they have sex, like so much that is like, you know, Owen's character and Abby's character, like Owen's in particular, because that's like kind of his.
It's basically
tired
both of
war.
their. That scene is basically both of them at their lowest. At that point, he is absolutely done with Seattle, with the WLF. He's sick of the life that he's living at this point. When Abby comes to him, and at this point, Abby has just been hung, and she's dropped everything for the WLF. She's gotten her revenge on Joel, but that hasn't done anything for her. So she's low as well, and the two of them find each other in that moment. And yeah, it needs to be included.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah.
And I mean, it now looks, unless there's some sort of drastic change, that Owen's altercation with Danny is not going to be with the guy that we saw.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I know. It's such a good theory.
Yeah.
I saw him and I was like, I don't like you anymore. I never liked you in the
saw
first
people
place.
saying that like the Seraphite in the forest with Ellie was like the same one with Abby, and I'm like, but she's
And
supposed
she
to.
kind of can't be unless
Unless they change that, because I could see that where they have Ellie kill less people from the get-go, maybe having like not having Lev shoot her.
Yeah, I mean,
Arrow.
I
I don't
do
know.
have another line that I want for season 3. I didn't get You Go, I Go in season 2, not quite, but I am still. Are you wearing my backpack or is that my bag? I have to see that. That's the one that I want for season 3.
The line I want from season 3 is, "You're my people." To live.
Yeah.
Oh.
Your people killed somebody. I can't even. I skip the cutscene all the time, so I can't remember what the full quote is. But but no, I
they're
want
your
that one.
fucking people. No, you're my people.
Yeah.
Which obviously is going to come after Yara's death and Isaac's death as well.
Yeah.
And
yeah, a lot of
that's
death to
potentially
come.
gonna. Sorry, I was going to sneeze. That's going to potentially carry a lot more weight as well, because we were talking about how they're kind of leaning more heavily on Isaac as like a kind of father figure / mentor for Abby, like basically grooming her for leadership. And then she's committed the ultimate betrayal as far as he's concerned when she protects 2 Seraphites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's I'm very interested to see that whole scene play out.
Something I will kind of complain about, and I don't know if it was intentional, but we got like 2 strange moments regarding Abby and an older man this season. One with Abby being like, when talking to Joel, she's like, and you are handsome. And then the woman asking Isaac if he's in love with Abby. I was like, why are these lines in here? Why are they necessary?
Yeah, I'd almost forgot about that. Like,
Yeah.
until you mentioned that. Then
No, I just was thinking about it, and I was like, oh wait, that's the second time that they've had some weird thing with Abby and Peepaw.
Oh, she lost her father. She was probably after a father figure. I don't know.
Some Freudian shit.
Yeah.
yeah, that is, but like, because
I mean, people could read that relationship in that way, so maybe it's a fair question to ask. It doesn't really involve Abby, other than it's people.
They're getting
talking
ahead
about
of the shippers and shutting it down.
yeah, it was weird for like effectively the other commander of the WLF to ask that though. Like,
Yeah,
wasn't the handsome comment basically her going through all the things that she'd been told about Joel?
Joel.
yeah, which I thought was clunky and weird in the first place, but I
Yeah.
didn't like it.
Fair enough.
I mean, it could have
Yeah.
been written differently if she said, "Oh, I was told you were handsome." That's true. Or even, "I was told you were handsome." Leave it at that.
Yeah.
Or just don't do
Just
that.
just leave
she
it
could
out.
have just
Yeah.
peeled off the other descriptors and not had the handsome thing. Like, if they did the description, you're this tall, you got this scar here, da 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 da.
I just feel like they didn't even have to go through the descriptors again because they talked about it in the beginning of the episode. But like, as soon as he says his name is Joel, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, like if you had the
I don't know.
scar, if he had the height, if his name's Joel, but he's an ugly fucker, you're probably still going to kill him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, but yeah, you've got a bit of a like lopsided chin, or
Or just not my type. I'm gonna kill him now. Yeah. Oh, there's so much I want for season 3.
I'm just like, I'm in the same boat, but after season 2, I'm really worried that I'm not going to get half the things I want. I'm looking forward to season 3 because see, part 2 is my favorite game, but the Abbey section is my favorite part of part
Mhm.
2.
Yeah.
So like season 3 is the bit that is going to adapt my favorite section of any of the games,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Yeah,
really
same.
worried.
I might come back here, 2 years from now when we've seen season 3 and like say, fuck, I was wrong, or why did I think this? But I'm like, it feels, because in the game and just in the story, it feels like kind of a reset, and they're not. And they talked a little bit about this in the podcast too, just like they were kind of going like, without spoilers, this is kind of like it's a little bit farther removed from the main narrative, that they could play it similarly to how they did season 1, where season 1 was like so much more accurate with very little changes to the actual story and the characters,
Yeah.
because it's more of this like story of redemption, similar to how part 1 was like Joel's redemption. So I'm like cautiously with that, and just the things that they've teased in this season about what will happen in Abby's side of the story, like I'm cautiously optimistic, because I'm like, okay, I saw Skybridge in the background, she has like the bruise around her neck. They
Yeah.
mentioned like, oh, nobody knows what's in level B3 of the hospital. Like they've done enough teasing that I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm feeling a little better.
I like. I'm gonna be excited to see them do Rat King. Excited to see them do the Sky Bridge and kind of that descent stuff. Excited to see kind of the full island invasion and how it plays out.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. And I think at the same time, I'm really nervous about whether or not they're going to do the main kind of beats of the character story in that, particularly around Lev, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, comes back to, I think, a lot of stuff this season in terms of, we mentioned them in the writing, and the fact that the writing noticeably picked up in episode 6 and 7.
Yeah.
When it wasn't just a
Great.
single right. Yeah, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even though there was kind of less of those moments in 6 and 7 than there were like in episode 3, for example, in terms of like Ellie and Dina's relationship and like the dealing with queerness and stuff. It was, I think, still noticeably done better. Like, again, having someone like Hallie Gross in particular is probably better at kind of writing that sort of thing than Craig Mazin because of and then doubly so because it's not just like a lesbian or gay issue. It's like a trans kid who's caught from a religious cult. There's a very specific kind of experience there, which especially in the current climate, I don't think you really don't want to get that wrong.
No. And I don't think you need, if they can get a trans person on the writing team to help out with that, it would be fantastic. But if it is down to a specific, like if it's the same people writing, like Neil, Craig, and Hallie, then I really hope that they work on Lev's character together, because after the way that Ellie has been misinterpreted,
they got it so right in the game with Lev.
Yeah,
so right. It's like, do that.
Yeah, I would be, because of kind of how they handled Dina, which like ended up not being as bad as I expected it to be. I would love to see a more backstory of like I would love a whole episode of Lev and Yara on Seraphite Island, and Lev actually interacting with his mother and seeing the things that we were told about in the game. But I'm going to be really concerned with just how they've written this season to have like the characters talk to each other too much. I don't need to see Lev tell Abby about why he feels this way, or like, I just don't feel like explaining like his transness, because that was never the point.
Yeah, because
Abby asks him like, do you want to talk about it, and he was like, no. And that was never the point.
That's one of my favorite interactions in in terms of how they did that. That's
100%.
Like, it doesn't matter.
My favorite serious interaction, I should say. My favorite non-serious one is, oh my god, Lev now.
Yeah, me too.
But like the fact that he's just like, did you hear what they called me?
Yeah.
You want to ask me about it? That dialogue was just kind of like, okay. I mean, it was subtle enough that loads of people missed out on it, and went then kind of like afterwards, like, did the like almost cartoonish double take, like, what?
I've seen so many people playing the game on Twitch, first time playthroughs, and then they start talking about it's Lily, and people are like, who the fuck's Lily? And like, did you just completely miss that interaction in day 2? Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, and then later Abby asks Yara, is like, what, why are they after a little boy? And then Yara is like, well, they gave him his role and he was to be a wife to one of the elders. Like, I don't think that it's like subtext enough, but also obvious and upfront enough that you can kind of understand.
When I first saw Phil play it and we got to that part, I had a tear. I got quite emotional about it, because I'm so used to trans lives and trans journeys and stories being written as, now I've got to justify my transness to the world.
Yeah.
And it's not anything that needs to be justified or debated, as we know. But so many people get it wrong. To see it got spot on like that.
And that's something I love so much about Abby, is that to her it doesn't matter. She was going to save this kid anyway, and it mirrored Joel. Not in the game, he never really reacted to Ellie being gay. He was just like, well, I don't know what Dina's intentions are, but she's lucky to have you, and like that's that, because that's like that unconditional love that you have for someone.
I think the thing we need to remember as well is that they have done an LGBT story, Bill and Frank, incredibly well, where Bill and Frank, it was a love story that just so happened to have 2 men.
Yes.
The fact that they were gay didn't matter. It could have been 2 women. It could have been a guy and a girl. It would have been the same love story. The fact the gayness wasn't the point, it was just a love story that happened to be between two men. And I think if they take that same principle to Lev, and it's like he's just a guy who was born female and he's trans, doesn't matter. He's amazing with a bow and arrow, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's I think the thing where like I'm worried about it, not because I don't think that they got that same concern for again, it's more because of they've been so ham-fisted sometimes this season. That's the main thing. It was like that's making me kind of go like that.
I don't want it spelled out for the audience because I don't think it's supposed to be.
It's
I
not.
agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do also have that, I can't even think what the word is now. Apprehension. I do have a bit
something.
of
Okay, if they wanted to go, I'm just thinking about like thinking out loud. If they wanted to go some sort of route where it was like more overtly obvious, have cast some trans actors or a trans actor to be a part of the WLF. So it's like something that Abby has already seen before. So that's what, like, if they need to have some sort of explanation why she doesn't ask about it or it doesn't bother her or like whatever, sure, do that, because then that, you know, enhances the representation of the characters. But otherwise, I really hope they keep the same.
Yeah, just really not looking forward to people shouting DEI and woke, but then I can just ignore it.
It's going to happen.
We had that all this season, and like, I mean, as I mentioned, like I've enjoyed the season overall, but I think it like was stronger at the start and end than it was in the middle. But one thing I definitely haven't enjoyed, like the amount of videos I've been getting recommended on YouTube, like about it, and I've reached the point now where like the first thing I look at when I've been recommended a review of The Last of Us, if it's not immediately obvious, because it's sometimes immediately obvious because they put some god awful thumbnail things, but like other than that, it's like, right, look at the channel. Oh, it's one of those channels. It's just like, oh, this is trash, this is garbage, this is woke, this is like,
I started watching a video the other day. And I was like, I didn't even look to see what the because it was like a video critiquing season 2, and I was like, you know what, it could be one of those channels, but I don't even want to finish watching this because I don't want my algorithm to start showing me all of that crap. Even if it's like a video that I agree with, because then you start to get all of the more extreme stuff.
Yeah, I'll just be glad because they're all tourists, so I'll be glad when they move on to the next thing and leave us the fuck alone again.
Yeah, there is that.
There has definitely been an uptick of people coming into Last of Us streams and just like spouting shite and then leaving again.
You've had that, haven't you, babe?
In the last few months.
Yeah. Oh, that was funny because like someone was talking and then like kind of started going on about, I think it was unnecessary that they made Ellie gay, and so I was just like, okay, I'm gonna play with this a little. Tell me why. Give me the reason why. And then nothing, like silence, and it was just like, and then so I was just like, can't be asked, ban. And then someone else appeared on YouTube and was like, you can't handle like legitimate criticism, blah blah, and like I missed the comments at first, so they'd probably fucked off before I saw it, but I was like, okay. I mean, you're a bit defensive for someone completely unrelated to a comment on a different platform, but sure.
Yeah.
I've decided that my fun now is just responding to every comment I see on like Facebook or Insta or anything with your mum. And then just watching them get more and more annoyed. Oh, that's all you can say. You're triggered.
Yeah.
Well, it's all woke. Your mum. They just, I'm having fun and they're losing their shit. I think
unrelated, but well, it's related to the episode. But I think I am mourning Jesse, but I think what I am mourning more is that I didn't get one of my favorite interactions between Jesse and Ellie when they're in the bookstore, and she's talking about how, you know, Joel used to think I had a crush on you. It's like, but you know, you're handsome or whatever, but you're not really my type. And he goes, what, Asian? And she's like, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. And I'm really sad we didn't get that.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
all I
it
have to
was
say.
it was the same book. Well, it was meant to be basically the same bookstore as well. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had the mushrooms as well. I mean, there's
Mhm.
a bit in the game where if you interact with the big child like mushroom sculptures, there's a whole conversation about how people in the before times didn't have the same connotations of mushrooms as we do
Mhm.
now, and it's a nice wee kind of callback to the fact that yeah, mushrooms used to be quite a normal innocuous thing, and now they've got this. Yeah, I thought I saw the mushrooms in the episode, and I thought we were about to get that, and it never came. I was like, oh, that's a
yeah.
bit upsetting. What's the point in giving us the mushrooms if you're not going to give us the mushroom line?
Well,
Oh, I'll tell you what I am looking forward to in season 3 as well. Just mention that because obviously I really hope we see more of Tommy. Like
Oh,
not just in terms of day 3,
yeah.
and like I mean we want to see that scene obviously in. I feel like I get the impression that this version of Manny, like his sudden demise, will be even more satisfying.
I'm sorry. I am a true and true Manny hater. I hate that bitch. And I am so excited when I heard them say like sniper at the marina. I was like, yes, we're getting it.
I like Manny, but not beardless Manny. I like Manny with a beard.
I like game Manny. I don't like this Manny so far. We've not had much time with him.
See, I kind of like this Manny better because this version didn't spit on Joel's dead body. I don't know why. I can't let that go. I'm like, I'll forgive Abby. She's my like baby girl. I'll forgive her for killing him, but can't forgive Manny for that.
Wow.
Yeah, but I mean the reason I say I think he'll probably be more unlikable in the show is because he kind of Jordanified him,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Jordan,
sucks.
yeah, like Jordan's one of those like if you've ever played Resident Evil 7, there's a character in it called Lucas
Lucas.
Baker who's one of the family, and like at one point you pick up a photograph of him, and the little caption underneath says, "You don't know who he is, but he looks like an asshole." And that's kind of that's like what I think of like if
Yeah.
there was a similar kind of mechanic in Last of Us and you picked up a picture of Jordan before you'd met him, that's what the caption should be.
Although, fun
After-
fact, the guy who plays Jordan in the game also plays the young version of Sam Drake in Uncharted 4, which makes me kind of sad because Sam Drake is like my other favorite Naughty Dog character. But it's okay.
I always feel like after I've like having played Abby's section of the game, I like Owen. I don't dislike Mel. I know a lot of people don't like Mel, but I do like. I understand her. I basically like all of them. I don't know Nick. We don't know enough about Nick to be able to.
He's a non-person. He's a corpse in a chair. It's
Yeah.
But of all of them, I like them all except Jordan. And so the game gives you this whole thing about like trying to make you feel bad about killing Abby's friends. I'm like, I'm never going to feel bad about killing Jordan.
See, I like
Yes, part of
series
school.
Mel.
Yeah. I think they're
Series Mel
setting
I
up
like.
Mel to be
Don't
more
like
likable.
Don't like game Mel, but I like series Mel.
Yeah.
but they made series Mel more likable because she's like instantly getting bullied by Abby in episode 2.
Yeah, that's true.
Just like this constant like refrain of shut the fuck up.
I kind of, I've always kind of liked Nora, not because like I think she's a good person, but she's like ballsy. It's like ballsy to stand in front of someone who has a gun pointed to your head and just being like, yeah, that little bitch got what he deserved. I'm like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Say it.
But yeah, Jordan was always the one, like when you walk past him in the canteen, as
Hello to
Abby,
you too,
like,
Abby. Shut
yeah.
the fuck up. I don't want to say hi to you.
Almost every single time I'm like, fuck off, Jordan, don't care.
Yeah, I'm always like, fuck off. But then I go over and talk to Manny and his dad because I do like Manny's dad.
Manny's dad is so cute. It's so cute.
I wonder what happened to him.
Manny's dad is also an advocate of beardless Manny, so because he's like, tell him to get rid of this. So
That's true.
yeah, I was about to an explanation of that. But then I suppose, yeah, anyone who's watching now should have played the game. But in case you haven't played No Return, one of the unlockable skins for Manny as a playable character is Manny as he was when Joel
killed everyone.
Rampage happened, and he's still without a beard. So beardless Manny is kind of a meme, I guess. Like there's differing opinions on beardless Manny. I think most people agree that it's cursed.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I didn't realize, this is a tangent, but I didn't realize that like I don't know if it's updated on the PlayStation now, but it was like the update with Marlene and Bill was like only on PC, and it was like coming later to PlayStation, and I was like, what? I don't know if it's updated since.
Yeah, I know you could update the PlayStation 5 version for Marlene and Bill like an hour before the PC game released.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So you've got
I have to go back. So the way that my computer works is that I have my capture card, but PlayStation capture card doesn't transfer audio. So I use PS Remote Play, but I can't use my regular account on PS Remote Play because it just like the connection fails every time. So I had to start a new profile. So my like all of the stuff that I've unlocked, I have to redo.
Yeah. Was was that the Seraphite's alarm just go off?
It sounded like it.
I was gonna say.
I think it's it was an annoying car. I live right on a kind of a main road near the firehouse too. So
On an island with lots of ropes hanging from trees.
Yeah, that's why you've never seen my outside.
It's actually tipping it down here, which is well needed. Because if it doesn't for a while, then we get mountain fires.
Oh,
Joyce. Yeah, so it's good that it is.
Yeah. So I was about to say we went off on tangents, but I feel like it's more like we just took a turn and went on a completely different highway.
Which, to be honest, seems to be what we do often in this podcast.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it was interesting, but I just thought, like, since we're in spoilery territory, and obviously kind of the next season is going to be Abby's half of the game. If there's anything else we wanted to kind of talk about there. Also, you mentioned Santa Barbara for some reason earlier. I don't know whether there was something specific.
I did. I mentioned it in context of it being season 4. That's what I meant.
Is it confirmed that we're getting another 2 seasons purely for season 2? For game 2, rather.
I don't think it's like confirmed, but they've
They've said they want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that
we think that we can get it. Like, we don't know if we can finish it in a 3rd season, so we might need a 4th. It's kind of.
I think I was saying it in context of that's how I would plan it out.
Yeah.
Like have Santa Barbara be season 4.
Dear HBO, you can do it in a single season. Just give us more episodes.
Right.
Literally.
And also make the episodes longer. Like, we will wait.
We will.
Happily.
It will be fine.
I remember watching TV shows
did,
at 20 episodes a season.
Yeah, they did Ellie's half of Seattle in 4 episodes. Jackson in 3. They've got to do more work to introduce new characters, so I think Abby's side of Seattle probably needs more than 4 episodes.
Yeah, they have a little more heavy lifting to do, I think, with that.
If we say that that's like even if that's like 7 episodes to do all that, make it in even 10 and do Santa Barbara, because Santa Barbara isn't that long.
I mean, they've basically got it confirmed that we're definitely getting the Rat King based on previous comments made. We're definitely getting an amputation.
Are we definitely getting Stalker Forest?
Not necessarily. Well, that'd be fun.
She can't physically
we're definitely getting her hanging.
Oh yeah. The hanging's going to happen. Whether it'll end differently, like it might be that the infected invade or something like after, or no, if they fight them off and then they just have to escape the forest, escape from other Seraphites, presumably. That might be more
Yeah, I can
realistic
see
for
that
that
change
version of Abby.
happening. Mhm.
Yeah. So I like Stalker Forest, apart from I could always tell when Phil was trying to do his grounded permadeath run, I could tell when he'd got to Stalker Forest because he'd be like, I don't fucking believe this. That was a fucking stupid death.
Oh, yeah, that's the farthest I've made in like a serious permadeath attempt. So
Yeah.
and then I'll go back and I'll play it without like the permadeath on, and it'll be like it won't get hit once.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So yeah.
only a little
If I-
salty.
That's always if I can get past Stalker Forest on a permadeath attempt, I don't even think about it being a completion until I'm past that point. If I can get past Stalker Forest, then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this could be a completion.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's the choke point for sure.
Yeah.
I don't and narratively, the fact that it's stalkers doesn't really matter. So I think we'll definitely get a forest scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think
don't think we
it's probably more
necessarily
likely
do,
that
like,
say they have to escape from, like if they kill Emily or whoever the stand-in is for Emily, like, and then there's other Seraphites there and they have to kind of run away.
Yeah, I'd much rather they put all the prosthetics budget into the descent rather than
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
forest. So yeah, absolutely fine. Give us some Seraphites instead of.
I know what else I was going to say earlier. Ellie's bruises and bruises. Bruises. Ellie's bruises and all the
This is a Hermione moment. It's not bruises, it's bruises.
bruises. all that, like where she's been smacked up on her back and scratched and everything.
Yeah.
Because we've been watching a lot of Buffy at the moment. We're doing a Buffy and Angel run. I kind of forgot that Ellie isn't a Slayer. And that actually she's a vulnerable, fragile human as well.
Yeah.
Because showing that kind of took away a lot of any plot armor that may have existed. Whereas, like, we know that Buffy can kick the ass of anything dead or undead. So that's fine. But to see her with all the bruises, it kind of made me go, just for a moment, and remember that she's fragile too.
It shows that she's fragile, but it also having Jesse die so quickly and so easily.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that the very last frame is going back in time and seeing Abby's like in the stadium, it's almost like passing it off to a new main character.
Yeah.
I imagine that there'll be people online who are genuinely like, wait, did Ellie just die?
Yeah, there will be.
Especially because they did the gunshots, which isn't like it's more like in the game it's a cut to black. There's no gunshot sound. That's
I mean, I guess she does technically shoot at Ellie. Ellie just like ducks and it doesn't hit her, but that was an interesting choice they made.
Yeah.
To have that sound.
No, the first gunshot isn't that Tommy?
No, well,
oh, no, she fires but as she's firing, Tommy tackles her.
Yeah, and then he she pops him, and I'm so curious how people are going to react to that because the first time I was like, Tommy. Then he comes like waddling up later.
Yeah, I was the same first time I saw Tom. No, I like him.
That's the other thing as well. If they're going to give us more episodes and potentially go into a fourth season, if Tommy's going to meet the same fate as he did in the game, I want more of the backstory around that. I want more of Gabriel Luna in Jackson.
Yeah.
Being like consumed by his bitterness over it all and like becoming like the same obsession with Abby and like losing Maria and all.
If anyone from HBO, if anyone from HBO is watching this, one episode in Jackson showing that will be enough.
Yeah, I was going to say I would love to see that. To see that, because like we see in this finale that they go out to look for Tommy, but Ellie's like secretly hoping that she can figure out the answer to what like the whale and the wheel mean. And then as soon as she does, she has like conviction and is like, nah, I'm going to the aquarium, like, fuck y'all, like, I'm getting out of here. Seeing Tommy after Ellie and Dina leave, like, that's his opportunity to be like, yes, I'm going back to save Ellie and Dina. Yeah, that's why. Which obviously he cares very deeply for Ellie, because the like parallel that they showed of him like touching her face in the same way that Joel does, I was like, but ulterior motives.
Plus, he won't want to let Joel down, will he? There's always this whole thing. I feel like Tommy regresses back to being the younger brother again, because he's definitely more senior in Jackson than Joel is.
Yeah.
So he goes back after Joel's death and dealing with Ellie. He goes back to being the younger brother, and he's definitely got to do things to make Joel proud.
I'm just curious. I'm like, how I want an explanation how this version of Tommy gets to the marina.
Yeah.
Like, obviously we know he's a skilled sniper, so I can assume that his logic would be like, I'm going to get to the high ground, so I have, you know, a full scope of the city. But what causes him to start firing? Does he see someone he knows that was involved?
Yeah.
Like, does he see Manny and know somehow that, I mean, because this version of Tommy wasn't there, so he didn't see.
I always figured he just gets caught. He gets seen and suddenly, like, all he can do is start firing. I actually, there's a point in the game. Ellie drops the map in the aquarium, which basically tells Abby we're staying at the theater. How did Abby get to the theater in the show?
I think it'll be the same, but I think it'll be the same, but I didn't see. No, she had a map because she was like, "You're gonna point to this." Where
that was
she
their map.
is.
That was their map.
I mean, I guess we'll get to see it next season, but
yeah,
because it's a huge distance as well. It's not like the theater's like round the corner.
No.
Maybe she sees them going off. Maybe she gets back from the island as they're leaving, and she's like, "What the fuck?" Goes and finds them,
and follows them or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe finds the theater lit up, because that's one thing in the game. Like, the theater is so lit up. There's like the mall's just down the road. Like, all it needs is for one of the WLF to like look out a window and see that the theater's lit up about 3 or 4 blocks over and be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about it because I was like, I when I watched, I was like, I missed if she left a map or something. But if she didn't, what is the reason?
Yeah, I mean, we finally know how Jesse found Ellie, which was a relatively mundane explanation, like how they found the theater.
Yeah.
Confirmation that Shimmer's alive. You guys have probably spoken about that already.
Yeah, we were saying before, like, as much as we like animals, they should have still had the dog death in and stuff. It felt like pulling punches. I mean, they did then give us like utter trauma with Mel, but
yeah, that was horrible
and unrealistic. Start me off on that again. Basically, if the carotid artery is caught, then it would have to have gone much deeper than just a slash. It would have been gaping, and it would have been spurting because it's the one that's connected to the cardiac system.
yeah, well, by the trauma I meant more the like cut out the baby thing. But yeah.
There are two kinds of people. Yeah, and that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if we got hints of anything else yet, or it's just like completely unknown. Yeah, because all the hints we've seen of Abby's side have only come in this episode, really, haven't they? We haven't seen much beforehand.
No.
Yeah, I'm still shocked that there was no mention of Abby being at the hospital. That honestly shocks me.
Well, no,
Isaac
said we haven't heard anything since yesterday, which I presume means.
Yeah, but I was like, you know how Ellie's going through the air duct and hears that like Abby was there.
Yeah.
There was like none of that in episode 5.
Yeah, unless they've again, if they film something and cut it out and then stick it in next season, to like have the conversation tie into Abby's story. But or if they do things in a different order, even potentially, or slightly different timeline. Because Ellie mentioned that she left Nora to turn. If Abby's not fully out, I think we were talking about Abby not being out of fighting the Rat King and then coming back and finding Nora dead. If she finds Nora infected,
That would be awful.
but also kind of
Cool
awesome
as
for like
fuck.
a set piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine she's just beaten the Rat King, and then she's got one more infected to deal with, and it's her pal.
Yeah.
That's going to be.
Because I feel like
pretty
they wouldn't have mentioned that unless like there was a specific
reason.
that feels like a seed of something.
I thought it was just like when I saw that, I took that to literally just be. I left her. I didn't kill her. I left her to a fate worse than death. Like there's torturing somebody, which is bad enough, and then killing them is pretty bad. But leaving them to the infection just feels like the worst thing that you could do to a person in that universe. So I took that line just to mean I left her to a fate worse than death, and like that's why I'm so upset, or that's what I'm kind of struggling to work through the fact that I did that to somebody. But yeah, it could mean that Abby's got a Nora to deal with, which would be a lot of fun. But I don't think I need that to be the case. It'd be interesting if it was, but as I say, I think it's just Ellie being horrendous.
Yeah, it's. I want to know how many, because like she should know about all the other deaths of her friends, Fando and Mel. Be there when Manny's killed.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting now that I think about it, because she says he killed my friends, and like, no, he didn't, I did.
I think we're getting at least Tommy killing Manny.
But yeah,
sure, if she says that. I don't know. I'm subscribing to the theory that I'm subscribing to the theory that they are subscribing to the theory that fans have that, you can hear the Rat King in the background when Ellie is torturing Nora, which is like not true. Then I think they've said it's not true. But what if they're like, what if we make that part of the show? So even if she like comes up from, maybe she comes out of the elevator or whatever, is like coming out where Nora was left and like just finds her dead there, is also scary and sad.
Yeah.
If she's already pretty put through the ringer,
or if she's like she's like even exhausted. She's been left there to turn, but she hasn't fully turned yet, so Abby has to.
I could see like Abby being super traumatized. I don't want to think too much about how they're going to handle the Rat King, because like realistically, one small woman, like much smaller than Game Abby, taking on someone like the Rat King feels really unrealistic, and I'm really worried that they're going to be like put her with a whole team or do something stupid like that. But that aside, if she's like traumatized from this like scary monster, and then she comes up and then like something grabs her ankle, and it's, she thinks it might be another infected, and then it's Nora, that would be
that'd be gnarly. I love that.
Yeah, even if Nora is not actually fully infected, it's still like somewhat coherent, but Abby thinks it's an infected and then goes to like instinctually kill it, but then sees it's Nora and has to like hesitate and be like, what the fuck happened? I would like that story beat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting things that they've set up that could make for some really great scenes and episodes in season 3. But I find that trusting TV writers to do the cool thing that they've set up, it doesn't always work. I always remember when I was watching, way back in the day, I was watching Dexter, and like you had season 7 of Dexter laid all these dominoes down for what could have been an amazing season 8 and an amazing end to the whole series. And all season 8 had to do was just flip the dominoes and end the whole thing. And
Yeah,
it's almost like they took all the breadcrumbs, scrunched it up and threw it and just did a generic. I don't trust TV writers, is what I'm trying to say.
honestly,
I've been
season 8
burnt so many times.
was dire. I had
Yeah.
to force myself to finish it, and only because I'd sunk so much time into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Um,
so disappointed.
And so I don't want to get too optimistic about like, oh, they've teased the Rat King, they've teased the Sky Bridge. I don't trust them to do it until I actually see it on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get burnt again. Game of Thrones season 8 happened.
Yeah.
Listen, this would be worse than that though, because like season 8, they only had like bullet points. They didn't have like Craig Mazin had. You have the source material in front of you. It's right there.
Yeah,
You know exactly who Ellie is, or you should.
Yeah.
She's not a
Honestly-
silly little girl who's a liability. She's a fucking killing machine.
honestly, Clegane Bowl killed season 8, and any bowing to the pressure of fan service will kill the next season of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Because like if they I mean, I'm hoping, but my trust is not there either, but I'm hoping they're not going, oh, people have said that they could hear the Rat King, let's like put that in. Or if they're like going on Twitter and taking ideas, then I would be very, very disappointed with them as well. They don't even do that with The Archers, right? The Archers for Brooke is a very long-running radio drama about farmers in the fictional county of Portchester. And
Nice.
like the writers get involved in the tweet-alongs and everything, but they don't. We will like come up with plot predictions and we'll be wrong because they don't bow to fan service. And I think if there's a story to be told and you're right, we have the source material, then bowing to fan service will be a mistake, much as Clegane Bowl was. What a letdown that was.
Yeah. They need to, like I say, that if they're going to take anything on board, I hope it's that they need more moments to breathe and connective tissue between set pieces, and that they need to
Show, not tell.
show not tell, but I think also do some more work on understanding the characterization.
Yeah.
I think and making so, particularly with Abby's side, and making sure that all works, because
And trust the audience as well.
Yeah.
Like, just to what Dee just said about show not tell. Like, we don't need every single motivation explained to us. We can work it out. We can put ourselves in these characters' shoes and understand why they're doing X, Y, and Z. Don't tell us it all.
yeah.
Also, we'll send them a copy of Death of the Author by Roland Barthes. Like, it was the first thing we had to read in uni. I think they could do with a reread.
Yeah.
Just as long as we don't have to put up a counter in 2 years' time when discussing this about how many times they've mentioned the, hey, did you know that Joel shot Abby's dad in the head?
Did he? I wasn't. What?
they subtly dropped hints, like in
They
the
dropped
series, that Joel shot Abby's dad in the head. Did you know?
They're allowed to remind us of it once in episode 1 because it'll have been a couple years. After that, shut the fuck up.
But they don't even need to tell us that. They just need to show Abby walking in and finding her dad dead on the ground. That's all we need.
Yes.
And if they're that worried that we forget, I know HBO is allergic to it, but just previously on The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of, one thing I was a little disappointed in the whole season is Joel telling Tommy what happened in the way that he did in the beginning of the game was like the perfect recap without it being a recap.
Yeah.
And I would have, you know what? I would have loved to have seen, I didn't need everyone to tell Ellie what Joel did. I needed Joel to tell Tommy what Joel did. because we didn't get to really see their relationship
It was interesting seeing
this season.
Ellie spelling out what Joel did so explicitly.
Yeah.
I don't remember that happening in the game, where I don't like.
She didn't tell anybody
Yeah,
in that way. She told Jesse that like, oh, there were some people and Joel wronged them about some
He was a
goods.
smuggler.
Yeah. And that was it.
yeah. So now Dina knows like everything, and I hope that's not like one of these things where, you know, like butterfly effect, that you make a small change here and it leads to a bigger change and bigger change. So like, does Dina knowing, will that change any of her interactions?
I don't think it will. I mean,
I
this
hope
is
not.
before you got here, I was talking about the bracelet and how that's her way of saying, I've got your back, and understanding that what Joel did was pretty much a parallel to what she did when she found her mother and sister killed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not so much that it'll change interactions. It's more like that it recontextualizes, like not so much Dina knowing. I think I don't think that necessarily is the big thing, but like Ellie knowing the full details of what Abby did, which she never does in the game. She never knows that it's her dad and whatever. She just knows it's fireflies. That recontextualizes, like, even if she does the exact same things, it means something slightly different if she's doing it with different knowledge.
Yeah.
Which, like I say, if you're purely a TV viewer, you're not necessarily going to care about. You're just going to consume what's in front of you, and you'll have whatever opinion on it. But if you've got the game to compare it to, and you're thinking, well, does that make Ellie going this far when she knows more worse? Or, you know, how does it change your character? How does it affect kind of how we feel about the journey she ultimately goes on all the way to Santa Barbara before she finally relents and lets Abby live?
I think the more Ellie knows about why Abby did it, the more monstrous that she becomes. Because when she's got Abby in her head as this monster that killed Joel, you can understand her going after a monster, but the more she knows, the more humanized Ellie is in her mind, the worse what she does is.
So that's what I mean. It doesn't change what happens in the story. It just changes kind of the meaning of it, which is still significant. Like especially for something like this, where it's all about interpretation, where it's all about kind of how you feel about it and whether you think this was right or this was wrong or whatever else in so many shades of grey. That's just as important as action X, Y, and Z. Is the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
But I think it remains to be seen kind of, or is it, I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about that, especially since Ellie kind of felt like she was being sympathetic, like I mentioned earlier, like almost being sympathetic, and I don't think that's a character at all. But we have 2 years to stew on this now. 2 years to kind of wonder and obsess. And
I feel bad for people that are only watching the show. And I think there'll probably be a lot of people that are like, I need to know what happens, and they come and play the game for the first time. But for the people that haven't played the game and are only watching the show and will only watch the show, sorry, you're in for
honestly,
a hell of a wait.
I can't tell if I feel bad or if I'm like envious of those people, because you know, ignorance is bliss, right? Like, because my friends that are watching the show that haven't played the game are like, wow, this rocks. Like, I'm having a great time. And I'm like sitting there, like vibrating, just being like, but this was wrong. And they changed this and they changed that. And I'm just like, I wish I could just like turn my brain off and watch it, but I can't.
I kind of have this whole envy towards people who are consuming anything I love for the first time, because you can never go back to that very first time.
Yeah.
All you can do is sit there and watch them read or watch something or play something and go, what do you think? What do you think? But yeah, this whole, like, I'm reading books that Phil has read before, and I think he's enjoying me going, oh my god, what happened with Glocker? Oh my god, right? And it like because it's the first time.
That's pretty much exactly how I fell into the Twitch community, because I played Last of Us Part 2 on Grounded for the first time. And then I was like, I need to see how other people are playing this. And I ended up watching, I think it was Makima, was one of the first people that I saw playing it on Grounded. And I was just like, oh my God, there's a whole community here. And
yeah, and they've
totally fell into it.
Doing this thing that you
just trying to replay the game for the first time through other people, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I love like just like nonchalantly scrolling through TikTok and seeing someone's random live and they're like at a really like big part of the game, and I'm like, all right, now I have to sit here and watch them experience it, especially if it says like it's their first playthrough. My favorite is whenever someone is like near the apartment building and they like start to leave. I'm like, no, you have to go back. You're not going to find another workbench for like so long. Like you have to go back and use it, because I'm like, you can't miss that.
Or just at the start of the sentence, like, yeah, so you just go through there. Out comes a wall stalker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck for the next half hour of your life trying to get through all these things.
Well, one of my friends is she's playing now for the very first time, and she's watched the seasons and she's like, fine, I better play it. And she messaged me today, is Jesse in the game? And I was like, yes he is, it's all right, my lovely. Oh, because I don't feel I had long enough with him. No.
Well, he's in it for about half the game. Well, actually, no, he's not.
He's in it for just play no return. He's easily the best character in that mode. So
yeah.
I like playing as him, and I think playing as Tommy just because I like the gun he has.
No, I can't. The resistance to melee as a counter for no dodge is bullshit. It's just like,
I just think it's a funny evil joke that they played on us. Yeah, Joel's resistant to melee damage.
Is he?
Why is that?
Except when it's caused by golf clubs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like, it feels so weird that this is already over, like 7 weeks in, I've got to say.
Right?
Yeah.
I seem to remember going, oh, next week we're halfway through.
Yeah.
After episode 2.
Yeah.
So, as I'm asking for final thoughts, this is final thoughts for 2 years now. I mean, not in the sense that like obviously I'm not gonna like put everyone like bound and gagged in a room so you can't talk about it, but I mean on here specifically.
I mean,
anyway,
tired for you to say things like that, Mr. Dickens.
I really want Mr. Mason to play the game a few times and recognize the tone, because the tone was so off for the episodes that he was in charge of writing.
Yeah.
And episodes 1 and 2 were amazing. Episodes 3, 4, and 5 were so not amazing. And they were good episodes of television, like on a single watch. They don't stand up to scrutiny. They don't stand up to a rewatch. And tonally, they're just so different from the game. And I don't need the game 1 for 1, but I needed the tone to be right.
Yeah. And episode 7 was the first time I actually felt like the tone was there.
I loved episode 7 for that reason.
Yeah.
And again, what I first said when I jumped in today is I've watched it once about an hour ago. This one might not stand up to a rewatch either. I'll find out when I go and rewatch it probably tomorrow. But I really, really enjoyed it. I felt like I was watching The Last of Us Part 2 on screen.
Yeah.
Where I didn't feel that before. So just get the tone right in season 3, please.
Also,
if you need an editor for it,
we were already like typing up our CVs as editors or
Writers.
content consultants or writers. But like little bits, the little Easter eggs and the parallels that they did of people moving, of when Ellie kills Nora, the whole like moving in exactly the same way Abby did to kill Joel, that was all gorgeous. The giraffe and the big hole in the wall with vegetation coming through in this episode was just beautiful, because it takes you back to that lovely moment with Joel and Ellie where he's like, oh look, it's a giraffe. What
And
I would
because
hope,
of that, give us the dinosaur cut.
exactly, I want dinosaurs with hats on. I want all of that. You are very angry and also upset. I'm very angry and also upset. The things they chose to do weren't always the things I would want, but then I think they could do 100 things and there'd be something missing.
Yeah.
So for next season, I agree with Steve. Let's have the tone right. Let's have glorious stories. Let's have another Bill and Frank type episode, which was beautiful and still furthered the story of Joel, how purpose and what his purpose was. Let's have clever writing back and not bloody fan service.
Yeah. Let's have an episode of backstory of every single component, and I'll call them components instead of people. Every component of the Rat King, I want to see them in the outbreak. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Which I think I've said before, but
I think at least a cold open before on like of Ground Zero is like a given for that episode, because they've done it multiple times now.
Yeah.
Another final thought, I probably got many of them, is Caitlin Dever as Abby is going to be incredible. I have absolutely no doubt.
You're not worthy of Caitlin Dever.
I can't wait to see that.
So good.
Yeah.
And if you haven't watched Dope Sick, you should. It's really good. If you liked Unbelievable, you'll like that. Because Michael Keaton's in it as well, as is Rosario Dawson. So we've got Batman, we've got Ahsoka and Caitlin Dever in one program.
Nice. Rosario Dawson, what was she? Was she in Daredevil?
She was, She was in Luke Cage as well. In fact, she was the common denominator through all of those. And
I saw she's coming to Comic-Con Scotland in not long. I don't know when it is exactly, but
my friend Dee is a mad Star Wars fan and a mad Rosario Dawson fan. She has a massive Ahsoka tattoo, and she met her at the Star Wars celebration. So there's a picture of her, Ahsoka, going.
I have all of my over here.
All
my Funko Pops there.
You did miss our cat though, Steve. Frieda was up here for most of the pod. But just watch put Caitlin Dever in and watch it all, because she's amazing.
She's very quickly becoming one of those actors that I will watch something because they're in it. Other examples of that, like David Tennant. Like she's up there with David Tennant in my books. I started that thought. I can't think of any on cue, but there's a few of them, and she's definitely up there.
Yeah,
I have a new theory, because Neil Druckmann said that there's another Naughty Dog game that is being worked on, that he's like just like a producer role. My theory, that'll be totally wrong, but it's some sort of Uncharted reboot, but Cassie is the protagonist, who's played by Caitlin Dever, and Caitlin Dever has secretly been working on a video game on top of The Last of Us Season 2 this whole time. Crazy.
See, I'm here
with the Lost Legacy team.
We must manifest this. We must bring it into the
Yeah, it's a shame, like, because as soon as they said there was another one, like I've long felt that like Last of Us Part 3 must be somewhere in like early development, and then when it was talked about, it's like, oh, I'm not I'm just a producer on that one, not right. I was like, well, that's not it then, is it?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll say anything about part 3 until it is very.
Oh, I'm
close to release.
expecting the year to be 2030 something when that releases. I'm not.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I'm
don't
not
think it'll
like
be that far away.
because. But anyway, that's. I'm not going
I
to torture myself with that. It's bad enough we have to wait 2 years for season 3, even, and I'm
I
even
shall console
with
myself
my
with my new
criticisms of the
tattoo.
show.
I should console myself with like looking at my new tattoo every day.
Did you post a picture of that on Reddit?
Did no,
I
not on
saw
Reddit.
that.
Oh, not on Reddit.
Not on Reddit. Where was it?
Where did I put it on? Insta, and I put it on Phil's Discord. But
Maybe
yeah,
it was on Phil's Discord. I saw it.
glitter tattoo, glitter effect tattoo of Phil's stream logo.
Ah.
Yeah.
But yeah, on that note, because I think we'll wrap up there for today and for the season. So for anyone watching this on YouTube, I will have a full review of the season coming out, which is, God help me, I've got to read this all out. It's 10 pages long. There's a lot of thoughts, so there's more to
But
come
it's
if,
good, though.
if
I've
this
read
isn't
it.
enough for you. But yeah, I think it's been a lot of fun to sit and talk about this and digest it, even when we've had criticisms of stuff, and even when kind of we've had deep criticisms of stuff. I'll always enjoy talking about it, and I'll always enjoy like hearing different people's perspectives and stuff. So this has definitely been a lot of fun, and I just thank you guys, and also Dylan and Ash, who were guests on previously, who haven't been able to make the more recent episodes, because I'm always very glad of it, and it's a shame we won't get the opportunity to do it again for 2 years. So hopefully something else will come up in the meantime that we can natter about, because that's always fun. But yeah, in the meantime, I hope people have enjoyed this, and we'll see you again at some point in the far distant future. Ta-ra.
See you in a couple years.
If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. Like the video that's just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. This is a Patreon and member supported channel, so if you want to become a member and unlock custom badges and emojis, early access to my videos, and your name in the credits, then click the join button below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.